Call it my run. Oh, we're doing 5 on the hands. I didn't hear anything. All right, Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you 2 times in one day. What did you do to deserve this? Something bad, I guess. But here I am. I'm joined again by Greg Ehrenberg and producer Jordan. He changed things up. He always says 5 on the hand. So I had minimized all my windows. I couldn't see him. And suddenly I realized all eyes were on me. Here we go. Greg, how has it been in the 6.5 hours since I last talked to you, or however many it's been?
So I have not moved. The last 6 hours, I have done nothing but sit here and make content, right? So I had to do my Sims video, which I post to Twitter. I do a big MMA breakdown, so I had to record that so that was good to go. I had to do an Odd Chopper piece of content. I had a ton of stuff to do. And then I also had some meetings there. So I have not left this spot since the time we did that show earlier. And some stuff has changed relative to the slate, EMac. Most notably, we just had the Rays Royals game canceled. So I had everything all ready to go. I had lineups built. I had lineups run through the Sims. I have my exposures all curated the way I would like them to look. And I was really excited to present everybody all that data. And we're still going to be doing that. But now I've got like Tyler Glass now, a bunch of exposure to him. The Rays were my second overall most rostered stack. That goes by the wayside. So lots of moving parts here. But if you guys did not see the news, the Rays Royals game was just canceled due to rain. So earlier today, EMac and I did the strategy show. That's going to be the biggest difference between that show and this show. The Rays were one of our favorite stacks. We like Tyler Glass now as a pitcher. And now we're going to have to, reconfigure a lot of our lineups here because this is going to take significant pieces off the board. And then that also means we're going to have to find out what fills the void of what it was we were getting exposure to.
Yeah, fortunately, I didn't build out lineups because we still have plenty of time. And this was a luxury for me. Usually I'm on the live before lock shows, so I'm building lineups as we go. So I'm like, oh, this will be great. I registered for my contests. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do, and I will be doing them all after the show. But yeah, this is going to throw the proverbial monkey wrench into everything because I was looking forward to rostering a fair amount of Rays. Now, we did call this out as a weather spot. The Midwest, the East Coast are still looking a little dodgy across several spots. Let me call up everybody's favorite weather page here. DC Metro, they said more scattered showers than anything, so that would be Baltimore. I don't think that's really going to impact the game that much from what I saw in the actual local weather this morning. Same thing with New York and the Mets. It looks like there could be some late inning rain, but that shouldn't be too big of a deal. But Chicago, St. Louis, and then we lost Kansas City. That was where the crux of the storms were. So it wouldn't surprise me if St. Louis and Washington is impacted. I think Chicago is going to be okay just from what it looked like in weather and in motion that I looked at about 45 minutes ago. But it's the summer storms, right? So the humidity is what's causing it. So as things cool down and the humidity is high during the day, that creates afternoon thunderstorms, early evening thunderstorms. So that's that. We don't know exactly where they're going to be, but lather, rinse, repeat. This is going to be the next 6 weeks of weather in the Midwest and the East Coast. Any other overarching thoughts before we jump on into this?
It's raining fairly hard by me. I posted a video of it on Twitter, which the relevance being that I don't live all that far from New York City. The Mets are playing at home against the Dodgers today. So I'm keeping my eye on that spot as well, because even though it is like 90 to 95 degrees out, EMac, it has been hailing for like the last hour here, which seems apocalyptic, seems non-ideal, but I'm definitely concerned about the weather in that Mets-Dodgers game. So that game isn't canceled or anything, but that's another spot that I really want to make sure that we're updated on heading into lock. You and I are going to be here for the next hour. And then the live before lock crew, Eric Lindquist, Neil Orfield, they'll also keep you abreast of all weather-related news, because that is one that I think is a little dicey.
All right, Malakar wins. He's the first one to say, what the hail? Yeah, so there you go, Malakar. You have won the chat. All right, let's check in on a few things here. Greg, we do have a podcast network here at Stochastic. And did you know that if you leave a 5-star rating and review that has your email or at least your Twitter handle in there, you will be entered into a contest to win a free month of Stochastic Platinum. So you'll want to go check that out. Leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. We are across pretty much all of the main ones that you can think of. So check that out. It's a lot of fun. And then the other way, of course, is the Stochastic. I love the alliteration for the Osmo Avatar. So Stochastic Avatar contest. All you got to do for that promotion is go to stochastic.com/avatar, download the avatar, upload that to your DFS site of choice, place in the top 3 of any contest with at least 5,000 contestants. That's first, second, or third. No ties. Well, I guess a 3-way tie for first would work. Send a screenshot of your victory showing the Stochastic Avatar to Stochastic HOF on Twitter, and you will not only get 30 days of Stochastic Premium, you will also get a shout out from Laffy on the Hall of Fame segment. Okay, Greg, we're down to 13 games, and even Baker's dozen, starting off with San Francisco at Pittsburgh here, a 9.3 implied total. We have Ross Stripling and his low strikeout rate on the mound going against the Pirates. On the other side, you have Rich Hill. Some like to refer to him as Dick Mountain. He is in his age 42 season, has been on borrowed time, for about the last 7 years, but here we are. Did anything change for you today? Is this sort of a non-event game, or have you talked yourself into some SP2 action here?
Just because we have a little bit of extra time to play with here now that we had a game canceled. Have you by chance seen Along Came Mary?
I've seen something called, Along Came Mary?
It's a movie.
No, I've seen something about Mary.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Yeah, my bad. Okay. I said
it's Along Came Polly.
Yeah, that's I'm combining comedies. Anyway, I have a feeling that you do your hair in a similar way that Ben Stiller does his hair in that movie.
No, but It does look that way. So I guess we have to. No, it's the poor little last few little tuft right there that everything's receding around it. I'm getting the Charlie Brown look here. My wife calls it the Cupid doll look. So yes,
I just wanted to make sure everybody was taking note of your hair, which we brought up before, and tried to.
Well, your hair is usually a major topic, so I did notice you got it cut, but not from your extreme barbers like you've been to in the past.
It was actually the same barber, but number one, it didn't get fucked up this time, which happened a couple of haircuts ago. And then, my hair also just kind of grows back in because I had a very tight fade going, and then my hair just grows over in like 2 days, and then it looks the same. But I might get on the your hair gel regimen now.
All right. Back to our games here. Rich Hill, Ross Stripling, SP2s. What do you got?
Yeah, so when I was building out my lineups, I actually did end up getting to a little bit of Rich Hill as an SP2, not anything significant, sub 10%. But we are also going to have to allocate some of our pitcher exposure now because we had Tyler Glasnow expected to be a fairly popular pitcher. He was projected for 30% ownership in our last run. We don't have an updated one quite yet. I'm going to refresh to make sure that is the case because that game got canceled. Right before the show starts. So actually, 30.2% ownership is what we had for Tyler Glasnow here. So that's a lot that we're going to have to allocate to other pitchers. This is a really good spot for Glasnow. And it does look like I'm getting to some of Rich Hill's in SP2. If somebody's only playing, 1 or 2 lineups or anything like that, I wouldn't bother with him. But he's so cheap at $6K that I think you can make a case for him. He's shown to have a little bit of strikeout upside this year. If you look at some of the recent starts for Rich Hill, last start, he only had 3 strikeouts. But the start before that against the Brewers, he did pitch 5 innings. He struck out 8 hitters. We've seen a handful of starts this year, 6 strikeouts, 6 strikeouts. Start with 9 strikeouts against the Texas Rangers, which have a pretty formidable offense. So not the pitcher I feel necessarily the best about in the world, but I do think Rich Hill is a viable SP2 on DraftKings relative to his price. Wouldn't consider him on FanDuel, not considering Ross Stripling at all, but I'm going to have, it looks like, a little bit of exposure to Rich Hill in large field tournaments. He's currently projected for about 5% ownership.
Yeah, and similar to what we mentioned this morning, not a lot of leverage to be gained by the hitters here. However, since we did lose Tampa Bay, which was going to be one of my favorite stacks, let me just quickly look and see what we've got here for Pittsburgh, because Ross Stripling, someone I have, never overly fond of, all the way back to his days with the Dodgers. So let me see here. So we've got Sawinski is kind of an interesting option. Brian Reynolds there up at the top. Those would be the two guys we're going to look at most of the time. I'm sorry, I reversed. No, that's the correct order. Okay. Rich Hill's got me turned around there. And Ji-Min Choi. So I'm looking for the lefties is what I'm looking at. So the switch hitters, Reynolds and Carlos Santana, along with Ji-Min Choi. Those would be the ones I'm looking at. It's not, I don't need to force those into your lineups, but Stripling does have home run issues from time to time. Last year, he was actually relatively solid. This year, he's backsliding to his ways that had him as a 4-inning starter when he was with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
Anything?
I'm not really getting to very much of the Pirates. The one hitter that I have more than 1% of is Jake Sawinski. He wound up in 7% of the lineups in the last run I did. So I like him as a one-off. He's cheap. He's leading off. You'd mentioned him there. Totally agree with you, EMac. But where I have the most interest in this game is actually some of the one-offs from San Francisco. Some of these right-handed hitters that hit lefties well, very live to get pinch hit for. So I don't love giant stacks, which hasn't changed at all from this morning. And then we also do have confirmation that a couple of the hitters that you and I talked about as potentially being one-offs in the lineup, and some of them with really favorable position eligibility. The one that stands out the most to me, Wilmer Flores, first base and third base on DraftKings, only $3,200. He's actually one of my most rostered one-offs on the slate. I got to him in 14% of the lineups that I've built. So Wilmer Flores, I really do like him as a one-off. Always somebody who's hit left-handed pitching really well, and super cheap price point, good positionality. He's viable in both DraftKings and FanDuel. But yeah, DraftKings, I like him quite a bit at 3,200. He's going to be one of the one-offs that I get the most of, considering his position eligibility and the price.
All right, I wanted to see. I'm going to run. So I mentioned that I am into the single entry double ups on DK from time to time here, and Sawinski is someone that tends to pop up, especially when he's near the top of the order. He's 3,800 today, so I suspect when I start to run those lineups, which I will here throughout the show, just to see where I'm landing on that, because I was going to be with Tyler Glass now as one of my SPs, so I've got to decide who I'm going with away from that. It'll probably be Luis Castillo and Kenta Maeda, but we'll talk about them since they're in the last two games. Anything else from our appetizer game here?
Not really. I don't find this game overall to be massively appealing. Some one-offs I like. You mentioned Sawinski. I also like Wilmer Flores. Austin Slater's a viable one-off. Nothing I really love in terms of stacks. If I had to stack a team on this game, I would lean towards the Giants. But considering their propensity for pinch hitting, it's not my favorite team to make 5-man stacks of.
All righty, let's look at the Marlins and the Orioles. We did mention there is the potential for rain in Baltimore. I think they'll be able to play through it. We're not really looking at either one of these pitchers, which is a little funny to think about, with Sandy Alcantara being the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner. Dean Kramer is adequate, but we are seeing a much improved Marlins team here. Kramer is going to come a little bit more into play as an SP2 now that we're going to have about 35% of Tyler Glass now dispersed throughout the DraftKings lineups. But with this particular matchup, I'm not doing cartwheels for any of the four corners here. Is there anything that pops for you?
Yeah, so looking through this game, I think the number one thing we have to talk about is that we didn't love either of these pitchers this morning, between Alcantara and Dean Kramer. And now also we're adding the potential rain element into play. I really don't see a reason to take a chance on these pitchers. If we already were kind of on the fence about it, this is generally how I think you guys should approach any of these situations that have crappy weather, not just today, but in general. If it's a spot you love, cool. Roll the dice, take a chance. If it's a spot that you don't like anyway, you might as well just remove them from your player pool, which is where I'm at with Sandy Alcantara and Dean Kramer. Didn't love them as pitching options. Now you have the chance they might go pitch 2 or 3 innings. A thunderstorm pops up. The game gets delayed. They don't come back. So all those factors being considered, I think these are pretty easy pitchers for us to just avoid today.
All right. Are you going the same path for the hitters?
Sort of. like they're not outright fades for me. I just don't get very much exposure to them, and it's for different reasons. From the Marlins side, the offense just isn't really great outside of Luis Ariz having a really good season. It's hard for me to think he's going to continue to be a guy who's going to flirt with hitting 400 for the entire season. He's been very dependent on BABIP this year. So I don't have any hitter more than 1% owned in my lineups from the Miami Marlins. And then on the Orioles side, the real issue is twofold. Number one, Sandy Alcantara, while he's having a down year by his standards, he's still a well above league average pitcher. And he also generates a lot of ground balls. So this isn't a team that's going to have a lot of upside going up against Sandy Alcantara in all likelihood. And then in addition to that, the top of the order, the hitters we really care about from Baltimore, EMac, very expensive. $4,600 for Gunnar Henderson, $4,800 for Cedric Mullins, $5,000 for Adley Rutschman. We're going to talk about some other offenses that are more expensive. It's not like this is the most expensive offense on the entire slate, but it's expensive relative to a matchup against last year's NL Cy Young winner and Sandy Alcantara. So nothing that's priorities in this game. I do have more exposure to Baltimore than anything else, but still, it's very minimal exposure. My most rostered player from this entire game is 4% of Gunnar Henderson.
All righty, let's keep moving on since we still have quite a few games to go. This one's a good one to talk about. While we were on air earlier today, we got Jose Berrios stepping in for Chris Bassett. Still have Ryan Nelson on the bump there for Arizona. Arizona has a solid squad. It's amazing how much of a difference adding a couple good hitters has made. That would be their rookie Carroll, and then Luis Gurriel coming over. Ooh, is this a Remember Me game for Luis Gurriel? That's an interesting spot I hadn't thought about. That's worth what, 3 or 4 fantasy points. This one is all about the Toronto bats for me. I know this morning you talked about it. You were a little concerned about the salary. I got my Brandon Belt batting third there, 3,100 on DK. He is going to be one of my favorite one-offs today. I also like him in the home run market or for 2 extra base hits in this matchup. Nelson has, he's talented. He's going to have a 10-year career, but he's a back of the rotation guy. I don't think he puts it all together, but he's going to be someone that has 10 good starts a year and is going to shut down some offenses. I think more often than not, we're going to want to target him. I think today's that day. Today or earlier, I was saying I was hoping we got more lefties in the lineup, but it's the 3 that were expected, and Varsho and Kiermaier are towards the bottom. Even as differentiation plays and cheapies, those guys aren't overly exciting today, but I don't dislike them. For me, it's going to be mostly Toronto, little bit of Arizona. The big question mark is Berrios. Does he move into any of your portfolio now that we've lost Glass now to the rain? Let's
see. So Jose Berrios, it's kind of interesting because you always get weird pricing on these spots, EMac, where, by the way, was your dog trying to get in or something?
No, I could hear some rain because I know the weather pattern that comes here is heading towards Baltimore. So I was just like, okay, is it a lot of coverage? No, it's just some big fat raindrops that are blowing sideways because there's a lot of wind. So hello, summer storms, right? So
I have noticed that one of the things that gives me a mass amount of anxiety owning a home, which I never considered when I was younger, is anytime it rains, it's just like, everything's going to flood. Like you hear any noise, it's like, it must be water coming into the house somewhere. And we do get like some water that comes into the basement and goes through the sump pump. But I do find that whenever it rains, I just assume something bad is about to happen. Is that kind of what you feel sometimes as well?
It sounded like we were in a car wash briefly, and now I can hear thunder. So you thought my dog might be sitting outside my door waiting to come in and hide from it. I don't know why she thinks hiding in here is going to do anything, but she likes to be by me when there's thunder and lightning. But yes, homeownership does change the equation dramatically in these situations. All right. Sorry for the distraction, folks. Back to the Blue Jays, the Diamondbacks, the Bats. You are correct with the Berrios pricing. It seems like every couple of years the sites change how they do stuff. It used to be back when we had a ton of sites, some of them just, if it wasn't supposed to be a starter's day, they priced like all the non-starting pitchers at like the equivalent of a DK, $8,000. Good ones and bad ones. It was just, that's what your price was if you weren't on the schedule. Things have morphed a little bit since then. But yeah, the accuracy can move up and down. We see it more often with the hitters, because usually it's good pitcher to bad pitcher or vice versa. This one is marginal pitcher for definitely better pitcher, but that's that's really not conducive to the Arizona hitters here. What is your final assessment on this game?
Yeah. So one thing that I was going to say there is you never know what the pitcher's pricing is going to be when there's a change and you get, an alternate pitcher coming in. A lot of times the pricing is just screwed up where the pitcher will be overpriced or underpriced, or sometimes the offense will be way too underpriced for a certain matchup where a pitcher will get scratched. I just find everything to be overpriced in this situation. Jose Barrios is $9,100 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. That is a really steep price to pay. And then you go look at the Diamondbacks hitters, and they're all super expensive, at least the good ones. If you want to roster some guys towards the tail end of the order that aren't great, sure, but that doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Corbin Carroll, $6,100, Ketel Marte, $6,000, Christian Walker, $5,700, Lourdes Gurriel, $4,900. That's a really, really difficult sort of salary to get to for stacks here. So I'm not going to be stacking the Arizona Diamondbacks against Jose Barrios. I do think this is a little bit more of a difficult matchup than it would have been against Chris Bass. And the prices are so high that I just can't really imagine myself getting there. So if I'm going to stack one side of this game, it's going to be the Toronto side. They have an easier matchup against Ryan Nelson. In addition to that, they're slightly cheaper than the Diamondbacks. I mean, it's not that hard to be cheaper than the Diamondbacks because they're so crazy expensive with multiple hitters over 6K. If you look at the Blue Jays lineup, still very expensive. Springer, $5,500, Bichette, $5,400, Vlad is $5,200. I do have some exposure to the Blue Jays as a stack, but it ended up being very minimal. Oh, did EMac just fall off? All right, guys. So EMac is apparently experiencing technical difficulties. Either that or that whole thing was a ploy. It's not even raining by him. He's doing this whole bit where he's going to check the weather and he just decides like, hey, good time to bail out here. Nobody wants to do shows with me today, Jordan. Is that the case? Nobody wants to work with me today. I'm going solo. Neil sleeps through the strategy show in the morning. EMac fills in. Then we get to the deep dive. EMac falls out. But anyway, just as a summary here, this is overall not a game I have a massive amount of interest in. Of everything I have, the most of it is the Blue Jays side of the game, but still my most rostered hitter in this entire game is 5% of Danny Jensen. And then I have 4% of Bo Bichette right now. So nothing really of interest in that Toronto-Arizona game, but we move on to the New York Mets against the Los Angeles Dodgers. By the way, if anybody's watching in Discord and you have a question for us, at myself in the Discord channel, we could answer some of those questions. Yeah, what's up, Jordan? Oh, Milwaukee, Cincinnati. All right. So it appears that EMac has these games in a different order than when I did it this morning. Milwaukee, Cincinnati. Let's get to it. So when we talk about Milwaukee and Cincinnati, starting with the pitchers, Graham Ashcraft, he is absolute dog shit. I do not like getting to Graham Ashcraft today. However, Corbin Burnes is somebody who I do have some biases towards Corbin Burnes, but I think we also have to look at, even though he's in a tough matchup, he's on the road. It's a hitter-friendly park against the Reds offense. It's really been a standout this year, unexpectedly. Corbin Burnes, after getting off to a slow start, has looked a little bit more like Corbin Burnes as of late. So Corbin Burnes, last two starts heading into the All-Star break, one of them against the Reds, actually. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, 2 earned runs against the Reds. Before that against Pittsburgh, 7 innings, 7 strikeouts, 2 earned runs. So Corbin Burnes is somebody who I do expect to have a better second half of the year than he had in the first half of the year. And even if he isn't the same pitcher who won the Cy Young Award a couple of years ago, I still think we're going to get, like I said, a quality second half of the year out of Corbin Burnes. There's going to be upside there. And a couple things going for him in addition. He's cheap and he's not picking up ownership today. So he's somebody I'm really ending up gravitating towards as a contrarian pitching option. If you guys looked at the Sims video I posted to Twitter earlier, Corbin Burnes was actually my most rostered pitcher. Got to him north of 30% of my lineups. The 8,400 price point is appealing in my opinion. Then in addition, only 7% owned for Corbin Burnes today. And look who's back. EMac, what is happening?
Well, the bit of a lightning strike was a little too close, I guess. So now I'm nervous really about home ownership here, Greg.
if you would have come back and you would have said it was a power surge, but more of your hair was sticking up when you came back. Yeah, it's just all of it sticking out. You get like smoke coming off the top of your head. Yeah. No, it was rather scary. It's when all you get that electrical pop in your ears when everything shuts down because you've got the AirPods in. So there was a very funny comment from Game On Let's Go in the YouTube chat. He said, EMac figured that if Neil could sleep through the show, why can't EMac take a quick nap? It's just an old dude thing.
It is totally. And I normally I would have on a Friday afternoon, but no, I am on the show here. So here we are. Sorry, I missed out. It looked like you got to Corbin Burns and the Cincinnati
so we
Reds.
wrapped up the last game, and then we did the pitchers in this game, which Graham Ashcraft, no real interest in. Then Corbin Burns, I'm getting to a good amount of as a contrarian pitching option. Now, as far as offenses go, I was getting to the Brewers as my third most rostered offense on my last run, which still does include the Tampa Bay Rays and Tyler Glass now. So obviously going to have to update that, but not going to update all my lineups while we're on the deeper dive show. But I still do think that a pretty good indication of where I'm going to land here. I'm going to end up getting to a lot of the Milwaukee Brewers, I assume, once I rerun lineups in the absence of the Tampa Bay Rays. This was my third most rostered offense, only behind the Yankees and the Rays the last time I ran my lineups. And a bunch of hitters were popping up individually for me that I got a lot of. William Contreras, my most rostered catcher on the entire slate. Nothing is going to change that. Such a good spot for the Brewers offense against Graham Ashcraft. They're expected to be a little bit popular here, but nothing crazy, right around 10% ownership to them, which I think is more or less warranted. And then also you look at the Brewers offense, and they're just not all that expensive. We've got Adames is 4,300, Yelich is 4,600, Contreras is 4,400. Every other hitter in the lineup, $3,400 or cheaper. So great matchup against Graham Ashcraft, who has been largely terrible over the course of his entire baseball career. I really think he just keeps a roster spot because he throws a fastball really hard. So like, oh, maybe he'll turn this thing around, and then he never really does. So Brewers offense, I know they haven't been great this year, but I do think the Brewers offense is better than Graham Ashcraft is as a pitcher. So high priority on the Brewers stats.
All right, let's continue on to our next one here. Dodgers and the Mets. We sort of were nonplussed with this game, but again, we keep mentioning the glass now effect. You did like Justin Verlander somewhat. This is another weather game, so that probably as excited as we get, it's probably going to tamp back down. We've got another 2 hours until we get to this game, so we'll have a better indicator of what the weather is going to be like in New York. But bringing us full circle here, starting off with Julio Urias, any interest in him, expecting him for 80, 85 pitches, kind of the semi-norm with him? And what the hell happened to the Dodgers? They haven't had that great of a season, have they?
If I had to roster one of the pitchers in the game, I would lean towards Justin Verlander. Maybe sneaks it into a lineup or two for me, but nothing that I really like at pitching. There's nothing I'd be considering for anybody who's playing 20 or less lineups today. No reason to play Julio Urias or Justin Verlander in this spot. And that would be even if we weren't factoring in the weather. And we kind of do have to factor in the weather. So this is the one game, if you guys weren't watching EMac and I at the top of the show, the Rays game has been postponed. This seems like the second most likely game to be canceled. I live not all that far from New York City. It's been pouring. It's been hailing, thunder and lightning here for the last couple hours or so. So keep an eye on this one. Look for weather updates, but pitchers, no real interest for me.
All right. And then hitters turning around would, in sort of the approach for those that are just dipping in for a Friday or sometimes for the weekend, we do like to remind people some of these games that do have a chance of playing, take out these hitters for your one-offs. But if you do feel daring, go ahead and stack with them. You just have to accept the fact that, hey, it's like somebody pitched a no-hitter in the event after lock, the game is postponed. But that's one way you can compartmentalize your risk and still have an opportunity to get some leverage against the field, because a lot of people don't necessarily do that. So a fair amount of the popularity and ownership, 5 to 6%, is going to be floating around various lineups out in the field. So this is one way where others could potentially contribute to the rake. You can be smart, compartmentalize your stuff, and be thoughtful about it. And if you lose, it was an informed decision, and not just oh man, if I only didn't have this zero in my lineup decision. Any final thoughts on the hitters here?
No, I mean, you got Justin Verlander, who I know he's having a down year. It's not like he's terrible or anything like that. So I'm not dying to stack up the Dodgers offense, not dying to stack up the Mets either against Julio Urias. If I had to roster one of the offenses, I would lean with the Dodgers over the Mets. But at the same time, so expensive for a matchup that's relatively difficult. You look at this team, and it's such a loaded offense that, sure, you could roster guys like David Peralta and Jason Hayward for relatively cheap towards the bottom of the order. But the hitters we really care about, Will Smith, 5,500, Max Muncy, 4,600, JD Martinez, 5,200, Mookie, 6,200, Freddie Freeman, 5,800. If I was only rostering one hitter in this game, all things being considered, would be Max Muncy. 0.5% projected owned, a ton of homer upside. $4,600 is a reasonable enough price, but nothing that's really actually standing out here.
All right. 600, almost 600 people watching here. Let's hit that like button. Let's get us up to, let's call it 125. Where that means that 1 out of 10 of you needs to hit it. I'd prefer if all of you hit the like button, but hey, we can't be too greedy. Let's talk about Sleeper. No, not Neil Orfield this morning. Let's talk about the Sleeper app. They are the sponsor of our show. You guys are familiar with them from their fantasy football offerings, but they also now have their form of DFS. It is the player prop parlay cards that we like to have here. What is unique about them? Well, I'm glad you asked. They do have up to 100x payouts. That is 100 times your entry fee. Yes, those are long shots, but you don't have anything else like that on the market. They also have more statistical categories. They go deeper into things such as home runs, triple stolen bases, triple doubles for the NBA, double doubles for the NBA. You generally don't get those offerings on the other sites. And then they also have dynamic payouts, meaning that they will do a lot more offerings than some of the other sites because they will change their payouts slightly, meaning what your prop or your player pick will count in your card as the multiplier, because they're being smart about this, and they're mimicking some of those things out there, sports books, that are a lot of fun. But this is a fun way to get in on the parlay card world. We do have a link in the description of our YouTube video here that if you click through, you will get up to a $100 deposit match with your first deposit. You do have to do their one ask is a minimum $20 deposit, but when you get these deposit offers, you want to jump in on those. I see that the link is also in the chat there, and you can get more information as well by clicking that and checking out the Stochastic page there. We have a lot of other bonuses over there, but check that out. And that is Sleeper. So a lot of fun here today. Only Tyler Glasnow is it's out.
Yeah, so I was thinking about it as you were doing the read. I was like, I hope EMac realized. And so there was going to be a free square over at Sleeper today. It was over 3.5 strikeouts for Tyler Glasnow, which isn't on the board anymore because that game got postponed. But I do think it's a pretty good indication of the kind of free square offers that you could see from Sleeper that pop up from time to time. So maybe you can't roster Tyler Glasnow for over 3.5 strikeouts today, but it stands to reason that there's going to be a lot more of these in the future because we've seen them all the time in the past. So if you guys do check out Sleeper, you're going to get access to some stuff where it'll be like, hey, Jason Tatum over 0.5 points today. So be on the lookout for the free squares that Sleeper offers.
Right. And I'm just looking at their Twitter right now, and they just posted, and they said, due to the Rays game being postponed, we will be running another promo since the Glasnow contests will out there. And then his stat line is going to be graded as a DNP. So if it follows suit with the other sites of this type, they'll just take that out of your card. So they want you to have a good experience. So they are going to make good on that. Back to our games here. We have the White Sox, the Braves. A little bit of thunder and lightning activity there in the Atlanta area. That's going to go through into mid-September because that's what happens in Georgia when it gets hot and humid. We have Michael Kopech taking the mound for Chicago. On the other side, we have Charlie Morton. Greg sort of set me straight with Charlie Morton earlier today. The strikeouts still inconsistent with him, but he is now going to be, he moves up a spot without Glasnow here, but he's moving up into a more prominent tournament spot for me. I do like the strikeout upside when it's there, but this iteration of the White Sox does bring strikeouts, and they don't bring a lot of consistent power. That bodes well for Morton, who can usually coax ground balls out of the opposition here. Looking at just the pitching side, I'm assuming you're waving off Kopech at this point in time, but Charlie Morton, how is he rating out for you?
Yeah, really well. And I'm just looking through. We got, if you didn't see Mac just a minute ago, we got updated ownership. So I'm kind of looking through to see where everything stands now because, pretty big change to the slate now that we've taken one of the most popular offense, one of the most popular pitchers off the board. And Charlie Morton was already somebody I like. Now it's going to just by force be even more so because we've taken one of the best pitching options in Tyler Glasnow off the board. Before this, I had 26% of Charlie Morton, so it stands to reason that's going to go up a little bit. We haven't projected for 30% ownership. So I'm probably going to be close to even with the field on Morton if I had 26% of him. Then we're taking Tyler Glass now out. Yeah, I think he's about appropriately owned. Good option. I'd consider him for tournaments, consider him for cash games of that kind of ownership. Matchup against the White Sox is a decent one. The White Sox offense has been pretty underwhelming this year. Another thing here that also we should note is earlier in the day, we were talking about how Luis Robert got banged up during the home run derby. We weren't sure if he was going to be in or out of the lineup. He is in for the White Sox, but that's not enough to deter me completely off of Charlie Morton. He's only 9K. He has some strikeout upside. Even on FanDuel on a single pitcher site, I would still be considering Charlie Morton. He's 30.8% owned over on DraftKings. FanDuel Morton is 21.3% owned. I think both ownerships pretty reasonable. So Charlie Morton, good spot for him against the White Sox. I consider him one of the safer options on the slate, and there's potential for upside as well.
No, and those are good call outs. He's put up 5 straight strong games on DraftKings there. He generally doesn't go much beyond the 5th inning, meaning he's going to close out the 5th inning, but depending on where his pitch count is, they don't seem to push him too much into the 6th inning. He did get there in his last start before the break, 6 1/3, but prior to that, he had gone 5 starts before he had gone into the 6th inning, or completed the 6th inning anyway. So that's just one thing that you do want to think about. Again, the strikeouts come and go, but the offset of his tremendous ground ball rate is worthwhile. And he's a fellow old, Greg. I'm trying different combinations of cash game pitchers. I think I'm still leaning toward Castillo and Maeda, but Morton and Ohtani are looking pretty good as well. So it's some combination of those 4 when you're playing over on DraftKings. The Atlanta hitters, we sang the praises of Ronald Acuna. Could he be the first 40-70 guy? That was some of the articles I read during the All-Star break. The other one that was interesting, they talked about, it was a Bill James metric that he created, but basically it averaged the midpoint or the average of your home runs and your steals. And the highest anybody had ever had was Alex Rodriguez in 1998. I think it was like 43 or so. And Acuna very well could best that. So, 40 plus 70 divided by 2 clearly would top that. But that was an interesting metric to look at there. How are you feeling about the Atlanta Braves? Because we're paying a pretty penny.
They're really expensive. So there are hitters that are popping up here and there as one-offs for me. The one I get to the most is Acuna, though ultimately I am still underweight to the field on Acuna. We have him projected for north of 20% ownership. I got to him in the mid-teens in the last run that I did. And then as for other hitters here, they individually have upside, but how do you stack this team? It's so hard to get to them. Acuna is $6,600. Matt Olson is $6,000. Albies is $5,600. Sean Murphy, $5,400. Austin Riley, $49,000. They're so expensive, rightfully so. They should be this expensive. The matchup against Michael Kopech, it's decent. Kopech has been blow up prone at times this year, but I'm going to be underweight to this Atlanta Braves team, and I just hope this isn't them going out and scoring 20 runs for the millionth time this season.
That is going to be the risk, but they are an amazing antidote or counter move, I guess, to the Coors Field extravaganza, which we will discuss here shortly. Are you good with this game? It feels like a waste to target Charlie Morton with anyone, just because he usually cuts off rallies pretty well. Like a bad game for him is 5 innings.
I'm not gonna. And the White Sox offense also is kind of trash. So not interested in stacking the White Sox. I would love the Braves if they were less expensive, but they aren't.
All righty, here we go. Cleveland in Texas, roof closed tonight in the Globe Life Park. That is per Ranger Blake on Twitter. He is the VP of Marketing and Communications. He also mentioned on Twitter that they will be wearing their City Connect uniforms, but the roof being closed is helpful to pitchers. As we have seen since they've moved to that stadium there, it is actually very pitching friendly. That bodes well for John Gray going against the Guardians. Guardians have half of an offense and half of a group of replacement players. So this bumps up John Gray a little bit. And I want to see where these top stacks is moving him. Aaron Savali on the other side, solid pitcher. We don't need to take him against the Rangers. However, is he solid enough to muck with the Rangers stacks? How do you feel about Texas in this game?
By the way, really quick, Sleeper already posted a new free square. It is now Luis Castillo over 0.5 strikeouts.
Talk about a make good one there. They didn't even run a Twitter engagement thing.
No, just like, here, go take Luis Castillo. He's going to have a strikeout today and you win.
Very nice. Very nice. Texas, take it away.
I have very little interest in this game, and I hate to keep bringing up the same point over and over again, but some of these offenses are just crazy expensive. The Texas Rangers being another one. 6,500 for Seager, 6,200 for Semien, 5,900 for Adolis Garcia, 5,200 for Josh Jung, 4,900 for Jonah Heim. The matchup against Savali is a pretty middling one, right? He's not great. He's not terrible. He's somewhere around a league average pitcher. I just can't reasonably get to a bunch of Texas Rangers. The opportunity cost is so steep. I think all of the best, in my opinion anyway, the best pitchers on the slate outside of Kenta Maeda are the pay up options. So if I want to pay up for pitching, which I do today, I can't really get to these super expensive offenses. Not to mention, we're going to talk about the Coors Field game in a little bit. The Yankees are not all that expensive today. So you got these offenses that are super expensive. I don't think that the teams that are in the best spots are the most expensive offenses. It's just the offenses that are the best offenses are the most expensive today, regardless of what the matchup is. So I can't pay up for the Rangers at these kind of price points. I didn't get to any stacks of them. My most rostered hitter in total from this game is Nate Lowe, EMac, and that's with him in 2% of my lineups.
Okay, there we are. There we are. I'm just looking here at Savali. This year, he's been elite against power. He has across 213 batters, a 124 ISO. Last year, he was closer to 180. So that is a significant improvement. Strikeouts aren't really there. Doesn't really walk a lot of people. So that's something that can kill rallies quickly. So just monitor your thoughts on that, or your risk. Because your risk here is not that the Rangers are going to do poorly, it's that they're not going to have a breakout score that's going to vault them up the charts. That's the big risk with the Rangers. Let's move on here to the Red Sox at the Cubs. Brian Bayo going against Kyle Hendricks. Two guys that don't strike out a lot of hitters here. I'm going to go pull and see where Bayo is prop landed, but how are you feeling about either of these guys? No changes to them. You're still just waving them off from your lineups.
So I wasn't going to play Brian Bayo at all, and not that he's a priority or anything, but I think he probably wiggles his way into some of my lineups now, just because of the absence of Tyler Glass. Now, if you look at our top pitchers tool, we actually do have Brian Bayo with the 5th best odds, being one of the top 2 scoring pitchers on the entire slate. So we have him at $7,700 on DraftKings, going a little bit under-owned at 5% ownership. Over on FanDuel, he's 4% owned at 8,500. I think that's a little bit more fair on a single pitcher site. But the fact that you're getting Bayo at a cheaper price point for basically the same ownership on DraftKings as FanDuel when it's a 2-pitcher site compared to a 1-pitcher site, I think you can make a case for Brian Bayo in large field tournaments. Not my first click or anything like that, but he's been a serviceable pitcher this year. Maybe the upside isn't really there relative to some of the other options that we have today, but we've taken one of the best pitchers off the board. Some of that ownership has to be allocated elsewhere. And I do think that some of it's going to fall to Brian Bayo for me. Probably makes it into like 5, 6, 7% of my lineups.
So Bayo's so Chicago went heavy lefty against him here, but God, they're lefties. All right. Michael Tauschman, okay, that's fine. Ian Happ, of course, the switch hitter. Cody Bellinger, some semi-resurgent this year. And then we've got 3 guys that this year have combined for 190 at-bats. So the 3 of them combined for 190 at-bats against righties this year. That would be Jared Young, Miles Mastrobuoni, and that's a tough one to say, and Tucker Barnhart there. So while Bayo is not great at striking out lefties here, these lefties they're not good. So I still like his under 5.5 strikeouts. That means he's got to stay under 6. This morning we looked at that was a minus 160. It's only moved up to minus 165. So I think that's a reasonable wager to make there. If you want to get a little more upside off that, you can throw it into as a leg in a parlay or a same game parlay. But that was my biggest interest there. But you are right. Bayo is projecting out as a top 5 potential top 2 score on DK. So I guess he's now in my tournament pool here. Fun how these things maneuver around. Do you like any home runs in this game? Like if you were, would you point to anyone here for a home run? I was trying to talk myself into Tristan Casas, and I'm still, even though I know that Hendricks doesn't offer up a ton of home runs, I'm still intrigued by him.
I mean, if I had to pick somebody, I guess I'd go with Devers. Like if you just ask me who's most likely to homer in this game, but you know, you've got a pitcher in Brian Bayo, who is a heavy ground ball pitcher, isn't giving up a lot of hard contact this year. So I wouldn't outright pick anybody from the Cubs to go homer. I think it's fairly likely that we see pretty big regression in the second half of the season from Kyle Hendricks. So I like the hitters at the top of the Red Sox order. Jarren Duran, he's popular today, but I think he warrants consideration. Same with Yoshida. I think Devers is one of the best third base options on the entire board. Kyle Hendricks, you look at him and his numbers are not terrible this year, but his numbers have been terrible the last couple of years. And I just chalk any of the success he's had this year to a small sample size. He's only made 9 starts. If you look at him over the course of the last 2 years, 4.8 ERA, 5.07 expected ERA last year, the year before, 4.77 ERA, 4.95 expected ERA. So sure, this year is a 3.04 ERA, 3.81 expected ERA. Not terrible numbers at all. But considering his age, the fact that his velocity is basically entirely gone, I'm going to expect that to regress, especially when you look at some of these underlying metrics. 246 BABIP for Kyle Hendricks. No way does that hold up. And it's just stuff like that I think we're going to start to see more hits come into play against Kyle Hendricks. So he does have a decent ground ball rate. His home run to fly ball rate is a career low right now. That's also going to regress to some extent. So I do like the Red Sox a little bit as a stack against Hendricks.
All right, on to our next one here. Another weather game. This is Washington Nationals in St. Louis. Just 4.1 implied total for the Nationals because they're not that good. Cardinals, 5.6 implied total. Well, they're not that good, but they do have a good top of the order, and they're going against Trevor Williams, who is going to make it rain, or at least get some home runs in the air for us here. I'm assuming you're waving off Miles Mikolas and his 16% strikeout rate against the Nationals, or does he come into play as an SP2?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the pitchers here, and I have no exposure to either of them in any of my lineups. Okay. So Mikolas, Trevor Williams, those guys are no-goes for me. Trevor Williams, because he's terrible. Miles Mikolas, not quite terrible, but at the same time, too, I just think there's much better options that are priced comparably on the slate. So no Mikolas, no Trevor Williams. As far as the pitchers go, I mean, as far as the hitters go against these pitchers, hard to not like the Cardinals offense. Not all that much ownership going to them. They're priced reasonably. Like I mentioned, Trevor Williams, not a pitcher that I rate highly whatsoever. I am overweight to every single individual hitter right now in the Cardinals lineup, the one exception being Brendan Donovan. And the only reason I'm not overweight to Brendan Donovan right now is because when I ran my lineups, he wasn't in the projected lineup. So other than him, I'm overweight to the field on Contreras, overweight to the field on Goldschmidt, overweight to the field on Jordan Walker, Arenado. The only 2 expensive hitters we have in this entire lineup are Arenado and Goldschmidt. Really easy to make 5-man stacks of them.
All right. So again, this is one of the games to watch out for. The weather pattern that took out Kansas City could also eliminate this one from the board. So keep your eyes on this one, gamers. We have an 8:10 start, so there'll be time to maneuver around if we don't know anything. We still got an hour and a half until lock, but that is something to keep in mind here. I see Sean B is in the chat. Let's get up to where are we on the likes? I think we need another 50 from wherever we are, and I will debut the Sean V Cotier here, the clothing line. Let's get up to 150 likes, and you guys can see what I'm talking about. In the meantime, Greg, I'm going to give everybody a nice little deal here. Let's get everybody a chance to get 30 days of Stochastic Premium. How? Well, that would be by signing up for BetMGM. You can either go in through the link in the description below us or use the promo code PLATINUMSUB. You'll want to make sure you have gone through the link or you have used this promo code, because when you do that and create your account, once you've made your first $10 wager and had it settled, you're going to get a promo code from BetMGM that will get you 30 days of Stochastic Premium for free. To cash that in, all you got to do is take the code, go over to the Stochastic join page, select the 30-month platinum subscription, type in that promo code, and boom, it will make it $0. It's a great way to do that. If you have friends that want to sign up through us and they're not a DFS player, you can get the promo code from them as well. So I'm just saying, it's a good way to get an extra $100 credit in your pocket. The other nice thing, your first wager is backed by bet credits equal to the amount that you bet if you lose, up to $1,000. So if you wager your $10 bet and it doesn't come through for you, you still get that promo code and they're going to give you $10 in bet credits. Same thing if you were to make a $100 wager or $1,000 wager, but it's only your first wager that has that protection. So if you or anyone has a gambling issue, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. And the standard age for gambling in most states is 21 years of age. All right. Why did I close out my sheet there? I don't know, but I see we're still not at 150 likes. That's very disappointing. I should just do reads until we get to 150 likes, Greg. I think that's the easiest way to solve that little challenge. But in the meantime, before we pull out those drastic measures, let's circle back to the Coors Field extravaganza. A lot more pressure on this game now that we could potentially lose the St. Louis Cardinals. And we already have lost the Kansas City, the Tampa Bay Rays against Kansas City. We've got the Yankees 2-1 favorites tonight going into Colorado. Implied run total of 11.3. You've got Carlos Rodon on the mound for the Yankees. That makes it a little tough to target him. He is still not up to his full capabilities this season, and he also has a 6.37 expected ERA. That will start to come down. That will normalize more. Austin Gomber, I don't think so. He also has a 6.3 expected ERA, and I expect that to continue right around that range. You mentioned that the Yankees are cheap. It looks like 4 or 5 Yankees in your DK cash game lineup is going to be what everybody else is doing based on these projections. So I think we'll be overweight on that. Any notes on Rodon and how many Yankees is too many Yankees?
There is no amount that's too much for me. This is my most rostered offense by a mile. I'll be interested to see what happens once I rerun lineups and take into account the new lineup that we just got for the Yankees, which came out just a few minutes ago. I think like 2 games ago, I saw it come across my timeline, the Yankees lineup. So I'll read this off right here. The Yankees lineup. Where is the Yankees lineup? I thought I saw it come up on my Twitter feed. Maybe I'm mistaken. Yankees lineup. And maybe I didn't see it come up. Well, neither here nor there. The Yankees are a team I'm going to get a massive amount of exposure to tonight. EMac, we currently have them projected for 18% ownership, which is by far the most of any team on the entire slate. But we have them projected with an 18% chance to be a top stack. The team with the second best odds of being the top scoring team for us today is the Atlanta Braves at 7.1%. So we have the Yankees about 2.5 times more likely to be the top scoring team over the second most likely team, the Atlanta Braves. And the Yankees are a fraction of the cost. Before we're talking about how expensive the Braves are, well, the Yankees have 2 hitters priced over $5K, Gleyber Torres and Giancarlo Stanton. Then you got Harrison Bader at $4,300, Rizzo's $4,800. Everybody else is $4,000 or below. So this is a very affordable stack to get to. It's a great spot at Coors Field. I understand they're going to be popular, but when I was running my lineups through our Sims tool, I was getting to them in about half of my lineups. It's something I rely on really heavily as part of my process, our Sims tool now. So I don't see any way that I end up avoiding the Yankees at all today. I know they're popular. I'm going to be well overweight to them. If you guys play cash games, load up on the Yankees today.
So the Sims tool, you've talked about that. I'm a simpleton. I'm a fan of the lineup generator because that does all the heavy lifting for me. Promo code SCORE gets you 50% off your first week there. Tell us a little bit about the Sims tool here. We've got 19 minutes till we hand this over to the next guys and just a couple more games to go. Talk to us a little bit about the main approaches. And I know you've done some videos on this as well, because I have seen your video on the Stochastic YouTube page. It pinned at the top if you go to our home page on Stochastic YouTube.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty simply, it seems very complicated, but once you use the tool a couple of times, it is pretty easy to use. And basically what you're trying to do here with it is you're trying to build a set of lineups that matches the exposure of the field. You upload it to our Sims tool. You can do up to 2,000 lineups. The lineups then play against each other 40,000 times. And then what it's basically going to do is it's going to identify which players, stacks, pitchers are projected to be under-owned, basically, which you could get a team that even if they're really chalky like the Yankees, our data is still saying the Yankees are vastly under-owned, which is why they show up in more than half of my lineups, because that is what we're saying relative to their ownership is the game theory optimal way to play them is with the Yankees projected for 18% ownership, their prices, the pitching options ended up giving me the Yankees in more than half of my lineups. So if you guys ever want to sign up for the tool, we do have the link below to sign up for it. But also I do have a video that's up on our YouTube page, which is just my process, how I use it, how I create the lineups, upload them to fantasy or upload them from Fantasy Cruncher to the Sims tool. And then also I made a PGA one that Jordan Klein himself did some editing on. Now, was there all that much editing work that had to do? It seems not based on my conversations with Jordan because I'm flawless. I'm one take Greg. We go, we sit down, we run through the whole thing, and then we're good to go, EMac. No editing necessary. So I try to make Jordan's job easier for him. But if you guys ever want to know how to use the Sims tools, I did make tutorial videos that are up on YouTube.
All right. That is impressive. You have a lot of numerical nicknames, Greg. A lot of them. Well, 2 to be exact. Let me see here. For mid slates, sub slates, would you go to any of the Rockies?
Not really. I mean, they might make it into like a lineup or two as a contrarian stack. I'm not getting exposure to Carlos Rodon, but Rodon's still a quality starting pitcher. He's only made 1 start this year. He's been dealing with injuries. He actually was doing all his rehab starts, EMac, for the Somerset Patriots, who are right down the street from me. I could walk to their stadium. I could have seen Rodon pitch the entire year, but chose not to because that's outdoors. It was an indoor stadium. I still wouldn't have gone, but yeah, didn't go to any of his rehab starts. But still, I think he's good enough to where I'm not dying to roster the Rockies. If you guys are playing 150 and you get to like 1 or 2 Rockies stacks in your portfolio, not the end of the world, but the clear focus here is going to be on the Yankees side of the game.
Yeah. Now, to be fair to yourself, Greg, you would have only been able to go to 2 of those games because he had just 2 starts for Somerset there. He also had a start in the Sally League. So in his 4 minor league or for his 4 starts this season, he went 42 pitches, 48 pitches, 58 pitches, and then his first start in the show against the Cubs, 69 pitches. So probably somewhere between 70, 75 pitches is a realistic expectation. Hard to see him get too close to 80. I don't think he goes over 80 because the Yankees, they've run out of pitchers and marquee players. It'd be nice if they had him for the rest of the season. So hopefully they don't push him too much. Anything else from the Coors Field extravaganza?
No, I'm good to move on from this one.
All righty, then let's go to the Astros and the Angels. You have Shohei Ohtani on the mound there for Anaheim. You've got JP France for Houston. We talked about how it's going to be rather tricky to stack the Angels because you can't have Ohtani on offense, though it looks like he is on offense only on FanDuel. You can't have him as a pitcher there today because FanDuel. So that's an interesting twist and a lot of fun, I think. So let talk a little bit about Ohtani and where he rates in for DraftKings. Looks like we're projecting him for right around 20 DraftKings points. It's right up there with the leaders for the raw points total. He does have he's not going to have to go against Yordan Alvarez, against Jose Altuve, but it's still an okay Houston lineup. But Ohtani, one of the best here. Talk about Ohtani for a second.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as the pay-up pitching options go, I've really liked Ohtani as a contrarian option. It's a little unfortunate that his ownership has come up so much because Ohtani earlier in the day and when I was doing my last run of lineups and uploading them to our Sims, he was only projected for right around 20% ownership. It actually might have even been less than that if I'm looking through. It was, like right around 20%. I think there was a point in time today it was projected for 18% ownership. He's come up a decent amount now that Tyler Glasnow isn't an option. We now have Ohtani projected for 26% ownership. So still, that's a fine number. It doesn't make him unplayable by any means, but there's a difference between him being 20 and 26% owned. So before I was going to be overweight to the field to Ohtani, I had him in about 35% of my lineups. And it's funny because even though we lost out on Glasnow, I do think the ownership on Ohtani's come up enough that it's probably going to mean I get to a little bit less of Ohtani when the dust settles on everything. So he's a good option overall, but I think about appropriately owned in a somewhat difficult strikeout matchup against the Houston Astros. He's expensive, and we do have some other options to get to on the high end as well. So no issues with Ohtani, but I'm probably going to be about even with the field on him.
All right. Are you doing any FanDuel tonight?
I am only making, well, actually, I usually do live before lock, and it's really hard for me to manage baseball lineups on both sites. It'll depend how many of the lineups are out in like 30 minutes, because I can't go through my entire process and have to update it for both DraftKings and FanDuel if not all the lineups are out before lock. But if we're getting like most of the lineups in or all of them like 30 minutes before lock, then I'll be able to do it. Or else I kind of have to pick and choose which site I'm on, more so, especially when I'm hosting live before lock. But I have a little more wiggle room when it's going to be Neil and Eric on live before lock after us.
All right. So Ohtani is the second most expensive hitter on FanDuel. He's at 4,500. Acuna is just $100 more. People are not going to overlook him. He is batting second. He's gonna pop as soon as you hover over the outfield or the utility spot. So I think he'll be appropriately represented in tournaments. But don't fall asleep at the switch. If you are making Angel stacks, definitely go that route. Or tonight you can play both sides and you can get his hitting points on DK and Yahoo, or his pitching points on DK and Yahoo, and you get his hitting points over there on FanDuel. DraftKings approaching the stacks with some of the holes in the lineup being no Mike Trout, no Ohtani, at least in our fantasy lineups. Who would you prioritize?
Basically nobody. On FanDuel, you have the option to play Shohei Ohtani at outfield. Here, realistically, I see people in the chat are upset like, hey, look, FanDuel fucked up. Did they fuck up any more than DraftKings did, where he's only eligible to be a pitcher? Like we're so deep into this. Did you do any? I assume the answer is no, but just gonna ask. Did you do any best ball drafts for baseball?
I did not. I've got 17 going for NFL slow drafts right now.
Okay. So the baseball, I ended up trying to the baseball drafts overlaid on DraftKings. So I was trying to do a bunch of lineups as I was doing my content like as quickly as I could throughout the course of the day today. I am terrified that they're just going to totally fuck up Ohtani. Like I have zero confidence they're going to score him correctly. So he only has outfield eligibility for DraftKings purposes for best ball. Is he just going to randomly get pitcher points? Is he going to have days where he pitches and he doesn't get his hitter points? I have minimal confidence that's going to work out because these sites have never been able to figure him out correctly. People, outraged that Ohtani doesn't have pitcher eligibility on FanDuel. You should just be able to play him as a pitcher and a hitter today, but you can't do that on either site. It also makes the Angels, especially on DraftKings, impossible to stack. There's no Mike Trout. There's no Shohei Ohtani as an option. Joe Adell, who has some power upside, but he's on the injured list now. So I just don't see anything that I want to get to of the available hitters from the Angels. And JP France himself isn't bad. And then from the Astros standpoint, they're going up against Shohei Ohtani. I don't really want to stack against them.
Yeah, and their lineup is rather wonky because why not go lefty righty as much as they can if that means you can put Hunter Renfroe in the 7 hole. I don't know why they did that. You've got rookie Mickey Moniak batting cleanup, it looks like. So if you're playing it, it's the popular plays on DraftKings are going to be Ward, Moniak, Moustakas, and Renfroe batting 3, 4, 6, 7. So no Anthony Rendon in the lineup. He's going to be hurt for the rest of his career, apparently. Those guys are still okay. They're better as a secondary stack. Hard to make them a primary stack when we don't get Trout and we don't get Ohtani's points. But with the way they've constructed that, at least they're all going to be adjacent, broken up only by Luis Rengifo, who more glove than stick. So let's bat him 5th. Angels got an angel. That's what I'm gonna say now. They're the LOL Mets West Coast.
I mean, I like Ohtani, and there's really nothing else of the game of interest. So on FanDuel, Ohtani's a good hitting option. On DraftKings, Ohtani's a good pitching option.
Yes, no slates off, so I will be playing the late slate, and I will be trying to figure out how I approach the Angels. But there we are. Anything you want to mention for the Astros? Any one-offs you take against Ohtani? Try to run into a home run.
It would be Kyle Tucker if I had to choose somebody, but not really.
All right, 2 to go here. A couple good pitching options coming up. One in Kenta Maeda going against the Athletics. Twins are in Oakland, 5.1 implied run total. You've got the A's 3.6 implied run total. That ticked up just a little bit from earlier today. But Kenta Maeda has been dealing with some injuries. He has been back for 3 starts. He's been very, very good in those starts. Before when he left with his injury, he ended up giving up 10 earned runs in the game that ultimately led to him being hurt. But he is someone, again, I'm trying to figure out which of the 4 pitchers on DK are going to end up in my cash game lineup, but he still has strong consideration. I think he's almost a must play on Yahoo at 36. So I do want to point that out. DraftKings at 7,700. He's a strong option. For sure. He's allowed just 3 runs. 2 of them were unearned over his last 17 innings. Those were the 3 healthy starts. 2 of the games were against Detroit and Kansas, but one was in Atlanta. 21 total strikeouts here. This is just a great matchup for him. So I'm very excited for him. It looks like we're going to get an opener, Ken Waldichuk, it sounds like, with Paul Blackburn as the bulk guy. Is that what you're seeing as well, Greg?
So, I mean, Waldichuk pitches as
but he hasn't recently. But he hasn't pitched like that recently.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what to make of this because he's been a bulk reliever for this team, right? So like last time out, he pitched against the Red Sox. He just didn't pitch all that great, so he came out. But the game before that, he comes out of the bullpen as a long reliever / opener going in before him, and he pitched 4 1/3 innings against Detroit. So I'm not really sure what to make of this. I guess maybe it's like 3 innings for Waldichuk and then 4 for Blackburn or something like that. It makes the pitching here pretty unappealing, though.
Yeah, it's just really interesting with what they've done because they've kept him on like a 4-ish day schedule. I was going to say almost 5, but most of them are 4 days between starts for Waldichuk, but they aren't. He's going 2 1/3, 2 2/3, 1 1/3, 2, 3, 2 1/3. It's just interesting what they're doing. And he isn't always acting as the opener either. So I guess with all the blowouts, they've moved him to be a little bit more flexible to absorb innings. Greg, is that kind of what it looks like in this lost season for the Athletics? Yikes. So Waldichuk came over as who
he was part of the Frankie Montas
deal where they got him and JP Sears, another arm, and then like an infielder or something. So he's reasonable. Blackburn hurt all the time, has reasonable stuff, but just can never stay healthy. Having an opener and not Blackburn, that kind of does means 2 fresh arms of adequate pitching in a lefty-righty combo, if that's the way they go. Does that do anything to suppress your interest in the Twins, knowing that our counterparts after us are going to talk all Twins all the time?
Yeah, it's a bummer because the Twins were my favorite contrarian stack on the slate. They were the team I was going to play in single entry. And now I'm going to have to check what all our ownership and everything says now that everything's updated, because Paul Blackburn was expected to be chalk. We had Paul Blackburn project for nearly 20% ownership, and Blackburn sucks. I was really excited to be able to stack against a chalky pitcher that I just don't think is any good. That is where I think some of the best leverage happens in MLB DFS, is just the ability to stack against some of these, high variance, not great pitchers that will occasionally, due to pricing, pick up ownership, because people want to stack teams like the Atlanta Braves today. You need salary savings as a pitcher. And it seemed like the way people were going to do that was play a bunch of Paul Blackburn. Now he's not starting anymore. It doesn't really change the situation in terms of what I think the range of outcomes is for the Twins as an offense, but I lost the leverage angle. So I don't really think I'm going to be getting to the Twins in the same way that I was going to before. They're still viable as a low-owned offense, but one of the main reasons I like them has fallen by the wayside because Paul Blackburn isn't going to be nearly 20% owned anymore.
No, that makes sense. And the fact that he's first appeared in 2017 and he has made just 59 career appearances. Between that and him being an all-star last year, gotta love baseball. Baseball.
And somebody in chat had said, does Blackburn suck? Yeah, I feel pretty good in saying that he sucks. He has, for his career, a 5.06 ERA, a 4.39 FIP, and given the amount of hard contact he allows, everything indicates that he should perform worse than his peripheral stats. So he's a 4.86 ERA this year, 3.92 expected ERA, but I do think he's always going to be a guy that just has worse numbers than what his peripheral stats are anyway. And it's not like a 3.92 expected ERA is anything terrific. Last year, Blackburn had a 4.28 ERA, 4.14 expected ERA. The year before, 5.87 ERA, 5.44 expected ERA. This is by all accounts a replacement level pitcher. 0.6 wins above replacement this year. 2 years ago, he was a negative wins above replacement, which actually from 2019 to 2021, he didn't produce any years where he was above replacement level. So yeah, I don't think Paul Blackburn's any good, but unfortunately can't stack against him in the same way and get the same leverage.
See, I love this because I actually think he's okay, but with him not starting, that it's not worth arguing. But to be continued. Last game of the night, Greg, here, look at that. We're winding down, about ready to do the handoff to live before lock with Neil Orfield and Eric Lindquist on the mound for the Mariners. We've got Luis Castillo. He did not play in the All-Star game, which was in Seattle, so he has had 1 week off. You've got a perfect matchup going against the Detroit Tigers, the Motor City Kitties. This is a good spot here for Castillo. On the other side, you've got Eduardo Rodriguez going for the Tigers. Decent strikeout stuff. He is working his way back to full capacity here. The Mariners offense disappearing. Some would say it might be a sinking ship there, Greg. A sinking ship, the Mariners. See what I did there? Who do you want to play from this game outside of Luis Castillo? And where does Luis Castillo rank in your pitchers?
Yeah, so I fully understood what you meant, and I gave it the reaction it deserved, EMac. That was how I approached that. As for the pitching in this game, yeah, it's going to be hard to stay away from Luis Castillo. I do think he's a little bit too popular, right? Like anytime you have a 13-game slate where one pitcher is projected for nearly 50% ownership, it's going to be hard for me to get to him at a surplus amount relative to the field. But still, he's going to be one of my most rostered pitchers. I'll probably end up with somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30 to 35% of Luis Castillo. Great option. Play him in cash games. For tournaments, probably less so. By the way, we didn't mention last game, Kenta Maeda, one of the best value pitchers on the slate at $7,700. Love getting to Maeda. He's one of my favorite cost-saving options on the slate. And actually, I think this should be your two-man combination for cash games. Luis Castillo, Kenta Maeda. I think that's the way to go in cash. Great option, Luis Castillo on both FanDuel and DraftKings for cash. Tournaments, going to play him as well. Probably just not the same as the 50% or so the field is getting to him. As for offenses, I'm not really getting to either of them. Erod is solid. I think he's a good starting pitcher. He's somebody who the underlying metrics have always indicated that Erod's been a really good pitcher, but just a number of unlucky circumstances. If you remember that he's had a bunch of injuries that like aren't even things that you could chalk up to it being something structurally wrong with him. Like he had COVID that he dealt with for a really long time, and then it led to a heart condition, right? So like really unfortunate scenarios that Erod has found himself in. Now he's finally healthy. He's producing good results this year. He's just too expensive for me on this particular slate, but I'm not looking to stack against him either. And then I don't want to stack against Luis Castillo. So this game, it's only real interest in Castillo.
All right. And that's going to round it out for us, because if Luis Castillo gets at least one strikeout, he is your free square tonight on Sleeper. Sign up through the link that is in the YouTube description here. You can get a $100 deposit match on Sleeper. I will drop in that link into chat there as well. And then Sean V, this one is for you. I can everybody see? I better get 200 likes for this. This is the last time you're going to see the Sean V t-shirt, the What Would Sean V Do t-shirt, because it is going to be.
I like how you decided that you needed to put the
light on it,
the light on it in some way.
It just makes it that much, chef's kiss. There we go. It's like the Hollywood sign. Got to get those extra lights on it. But there we go. It's being retired. We will repurpose this for something else. But with that, we are going to get on out of here. So Eric and Neil will take you guys up until lock. With that, gamers, good luck.
All right. Later, guys.
Yo, it's that time of week again. Time to induct some of you wonderful people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame here, and also give away a whole bunch of free subscriptions to Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value, and all you got to do to get in on this fun. Crowning achievement. Gather the family around, say, honey, I'm in the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Come watch. They're about to announce my name. Go to stochastic.com/avatar. Download the Stochastic profile picture. Tweet your wins when you win at Stochastic HOF on Twitter and win a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. Get inducted right here. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and boom, you are in. Just like our friend Zach Skaggs, the ever elusive double win. Thank you to the crew and all the tools over at Stochastic. Not getting the free month, but representing Stochastic here. I can appreciate that. 2,250 here in the squeeze and the line drive. Shout out to Zach for a really nice day. And our friend Kenneth Malakar. I don't know what to say. I want to thank all you guys for all the good advice, not to mention all of you guys in chat. Great community of people. Finally, the Hall of Fame, 3rd out of 7,400, $1,000 for a boy who has supported the channel and the site for a long time now. Congrats, Kenneth. We love to see it. And Timmy, first off, Laffy, I'm gonna be up here a lot now, so get it down. The TX is like a CH. So basically, Cha Kiang. Listen, dude, I'm going to be doing this a lot as well, and I can assure you I will not get this down anytime soon. But congrats to Timmy. Love to see it. But, man, not a lot to most y'all, but I'm going to say this. I know nothing about golf, but making nice finishes goes to show you how it's getting done. Pay the man. $800 and a free month of Stochastic. Congrats, Timmy. I'm just kidding. Timmy Chakiang. And then how about Derby status or Perez status? Second day playing DFS, and I shipped the $1 25K mini max for $2,500 and placed second in the $3 MLB 20K moonshot for $1,000. All thanks to Stochastic and the guys there with the great insight and the MLB lineup generator. $4.48 for your first week. You know it. Link in the description, baby. Keith, I'm gonna need a punch card at this rate. Yeah, he's been here. He's been up a lot lately. Keith, $300 in the 7,500 solo shot. Next up is Matt. Shout out to the team at Stochastic for helping me out last night. 350 win there in the 10K Wednesday MLB pinch hit. And we keep moving forward with David Colasanto. Almost hit a 4-figure payout twice in a week. I'll settle for second place and a $200 ROI. Thanks again for the advice. Hell yeah, man. Second place out of 7,100 in the mini max. Take that all day long. And Nate Larson, not enough entries to qualify for the free month, but shout out to the lineup generator. 2 of the top spots. I've said it a million times, guys, whether it's high stakes, low stakes, we got you covered. Just like internet points or it's depletes. Not quite enough to retire early, but who needs that when there's the Stochastic Hall of Fame? See this $25 and $850 in the nickel, $600 prize pool, first out of 14,000. But as long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and you're not chopping more than 3 ways, you're in. $120 free month. What better way to do it than that in some of these low stakes contests? Shout out to It's the Plates 99 and everybody else. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. You've now been inducted, or welcome back if you've been here before. Remember, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF and get that free month and get inducted every single Monday right here in the Hall of Fame.
My gosh.
Welcome to Stochastic MLB Live Before Lock. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here, rare opportunity here. I'm here with Eric Lindquist. You can find him on Twitter at Eric Lindquist. And this show is sponsored by Sleeper. We're going to talk more about Sleeper later on. But I should tell you, I really love what Sleeper did with the, we're going to talk about the Glass Now thing. With the game being canceled, Glass Now was the free square. Instead of just like, okay, oops, well, I guess we don't get the free square. They voided all of the bets with Glass Now, so you're not losing anyway. And then they added an even better free square. Luis Castillo, 0.5 strikeouts is the line now on Sleeper. So that helps us, those of us who are playing on Sleeper. It does not help Eric with his lock of the day today, which was Tyler Glasnow. How upset are we, Eric?
We're pretty distraught about such things. In the sportsbook world, we're talking on DraftKings last night, after it had been up for 2 days, just kind of going through my process. I was like, oh my God, minus 120 over 7.5 Ks, smash. On Sleeper, it ended up being 3.5 Ks because it got retweeted up to that amount. So that was an absolute smash. And then it closes at minus 145, I guess, closing in quotes, because it was 2:30 out here. And of course, the game gets canceled. And it gets voided. The tickets get voided. It was just so painful. I could not even. So what you got to do is you just got to have a good cry, and then you got to dust yourself off and try again.
Absolutely right. We're gonna keep trying after our good cry. I'm glad. Did you get your cry out of the way, or is it gonna happen during the show?
I did. Yeah, my Lindy's Locks update. You can see that on my Twitter at Eric Lindquist. Updating everybody on the locks from the video from the night before over on the Odd Shopper channel. Really appreciate everybody who checks that out on the daily. Really fun to start my process. I mean, it's one of those things. I've been staring at this MLB slate now for almost 2.5 days. I tried to do some updates to how I want to be playing the second half of the season, to how I think certain teams are going to be performing going forward, what these pitching staffs are going to look like, guys who pitched on Tuesday that might put some kind of a alteration on series pricing as well, doing some different things, trying to like mix it up and give everybody an assortment of options, whether that's in the prop world, on Underdog, Prize Picks, Sleeper, wherever we can play, pick'em sites, and then in the sportsbook world as well. So I'm trying to do everything I can to be as informative as possible. And then I can't play God with weather. I just can't. So stuff like that sucks. Just sucks.
But Eric is working his ass off, and a lot of this content is exclusive to your Twitter, is it not? It's at Eric Lindquist. Some of it you post your Lindy's Locks update just on Twitter, exclusively on Twitter. So make sure you're giving Eric a follow there if you have not already. And of course, Eric, I got to give you this. We got this super chat from David Vite. Thanks to All-Star Game GOAT Eric and the rest of the team for my first MLB GPP win. 150 maxing for the first time tonight with the expanded bankroll. Do you have any general or slate specific suggestions, Eric?
Well, first of all, congrats. The All-Star Game could not have possibly gone better. I mean, it was ironic because I think I only won like $300, and people are sending me screenshots because I didn't have the Yandy Diaz home run in conjunction. I had like 40% Elias Diaz, 50% Will Smith is kind of where it ended at. Just wanted everybody to jam catchers because they have to show up in the game in some capacity. And we got the DH spot for Elias Diaz, who had 2 at bats. You got 2 from Will Smith. So you got 4 out of guys that were 1 and 7% owned respectively. So congratulations, David. Hope you had a just phenomenal night from that. If you're maxing it out today, the first thing I would say is don't make drastic changes to things that you've been doing in the past. If you've had a 20 max kind of process that's worked for you, if you found ways to identify the best plays, the best stacks, the best pitchers, like we do here with the top pitchers tool, top stacks tool, utilize those in your process. If you have the Sims tool, that's going to help you be able to carve out your best section of lineups. If you don't have that, it's okay. You have different options before you where you can basically rank your lineups in terms of projection and ownership together, wanting to find out what's best, but don't make any drastic changes. I would say the other thing too is like, if you're accustomed to just making a couple of lineups and now all of a sudden you're playing 150, it's okay to not have more than 35 or 40% of a batter. In fact, I would call that pretty standard for what a lot of the best players in the industry are doing. One mistake I see a lot is people play 80% of a pitcher, 90% of a pitcher, and then 70% of a batter, their first swing at 150. Don't do that. Just kind of carve out a little section of it. You don't need to make drastic stands.
I really like that advice. I mean, all of that advice is great, but like particularly because you are stepping up to 150 max, I think it's really important to make sure that you're not playing batters in particular. Sometimes pitchers, it might be okay to get like 70, 80%, but like batters, you really never want 70, 80%. So I really like that advice of like, I actually set caps on my batters if I am 150 maxing. I don't know what
I think a lot of people do that. I mean, you go down the line on, if you're looking at lineup rewind, if you're going into Cruncher and you're watching back what top players are doing, I rarely see players that have more than 35% of a batter out of 150. I think it's almost like there's a perfect line where they'll have 2 or 3 batters up to that point. Now, it is a Coors Field slate, so some of those extremes don't necessarily always apply. People will just jam Coors, will just jam certain game environments. The Yankees, obviously, a big talking point of today. I'm more interested in the Colorado side, and we'll get there, but I am very, very here for just like spreading your allocation across, not trying to hit a home run the first day that you 150. This is really a process of attrition, trying to just be consistent every single day so that when you do have those opportunities where things open up, you're going to get to the top.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. I'm getting a little bit of fire for my missing the morning show today. Bryant Cook says Neil too is sponsored by Sleeper SMP. Fitting that a show Neil is hosting would be sponsored by Sleeper.
That's great.
That's deserved. After to be fair, I didn't sleep through my alarm. I just didn't check the schedule, so did not realize that I was on a weekday morning show for the first time in a couple of months. So yeah, definitely screwed up there, but I'll going forward. Yeah, it's kind of a weird week with the All-Star break.
Logical people, I know. You're coming in hot. I get it. It's one of those things too. We had a lot of people out of town. We got a lot of people on break for All-Star break.
Yeah.
But
EMac filled in greatly. EMac, the GOAT out there. He's always willing to fill in if he is available. He's always very
sleep
helpful.
4 hours a day.
It does. Gamers. Does he even sleep 4 hours? I don't even know. But a more fun topic, Eric. Have you noticed my my necklace here?
No.
It's actually a trophy for being the MVP of my softball team last night in our big win last night. It's a bat cross. It looks like just a cross, like a standard cross necklace. This is actually a bat cross that was given to me last night. I think it was just because they couldn't think of anybody who had a really great game is really what it came down to, is why I got it. They're like, well, you pitched. I guess you got the win. We'll give it to you. But
your supreme cult leader, Neil Orfield.
That's right. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like, right? Definitely a big cross. I don't know what to make.
You're gonna go out and bless some people out at the bars tonight?
Maybe. I've got a friend is getting married. A good friend of mine is getting married tomorrow night. So tonight we're getting together, doing a little backyard barbecue with some people in town. So maybe I'll bless some people at the barbecue.
Are you wearing it there?
I'm probably not actually going to wear it there.
Okay,
but maybe
there we
go. I
was going to try to talk you out of it there. I was like, all right, if he's gonna say yes to this, I don't have to. But no, now I can be honest with you. Don't wear it.
Yeah, I don't think I need to wear this tonight. All right. Well, we should probably talk a little bit about this slate.
We can do that.
We'll start by talking about some pitchers, and we'll start by talking about the pitchers at the top. So in terms of pricing, let's see what we got. We got Shohei Ohtani at the top on DraftKings. Really weird that he's suddenly only eligible as a batter on FanDuel. But we'll talk, primarily, we'll start by talking about DraftKings, then we can throw in some FanDuel thoughts as well. But starting on DraftKings, I mean, we kind of have a gap after Shohei Ohtani is 10,900. The next most expensive is Eduardo Rodriguez, and then Jose Barrios, Charlie Morton. Let's give it, it's kind of actually, there's a gap, and then it's pretty even for a while. So let's say everybody, Julio Urias up to Shohei Ohtani, or rank them in terms of your interest in playing them tonight.
All right. So going to, I'm trying to think of how you really want me to do this. So from
however you want. I mean,
okay. Yeah. So Shohei Ohtani, I think is the guy that I'm going to end up with the most of. He gets a Houston matchup that isn't all that worrisome when you don't have Yordan Alvarez out there. Sounds like he had a tiny bit of a setback with his rehab assignment. He's sicky. So he was supposed to start that up this weekend. I'm not sure what that means for his availability next week, but I know that he will not be playing baseball today or in the near future for this series. So Kyle Tucker's your only lefty you really have to be worried about in any capacity. And he's a very good lefty, but otherwise there's just nobody that I find to be worrisome throughout this entire lineup, however it comes out. You have Yanner Diaz, who does have those crazy reverse splits right on right. So I will be looking at him as a very, very contrarian catcher option, just because of the way that the park dimensions work in Anaheim, plays very favorably for power. So I think Yanner Diaz, like the only bat along with Kyle Tucker that I'll have any exposure to over 100 lineups. But I have virtually none of them, just like the field, because Shohei Ohtani is just elite. The splitter is one of the best pitches in baseball. He does have a 10.4% barrel percentage this season, which worries me a little bit. But for DFS purposes, 32.4% K rate, facing primarily righties up and down and not good righties at that. Hard not to think that he's the best available option that's there on the board for tonight.
Okay, so Shohei Ohtani, number one. Even with the price tag, you're not concerned about that.
No, especially with no Glasnow, because Glasnow was somebody that I was anticipating getting to a ton of. If it had been him and Glasnow up there, I would have had more Glasnow. But now that he's gone, it's just everything's flooding to Ohtani for me. I have no interest in Eduardo Rodriguez tonight. I'll let everybody else try to make that a thing. I have no Jose Barrios. I do have some Charlie Morton. I do have some Luis Castillo like everybody else. So for me, it's very clear cut that all of that ownership from Glasnow is just turning into Ohtani, and I'm fine with it.
Okay. So Ohtani, number one. Who do you like the least? I guess if you don't want to just rank all of them, of those six pitchers, Julio Urias and up, who do you like the least? Who are you least inclined to play tonight?
I probably like Julio the least, but considering he's 1.2%, that's probably not the right answer. I think it's got to be Eduardo Rodriguez, mainly because he got shelled his first outing back, and he had been really, really good this entire season. So I don't want to say that I know exactly what we're going to be running into here in Seattle. It's got a 7 implied total, but he's got a 31.4% hard hit percentage on the season. I expect negative regression for that. He's at a 26.3% K rate. I expect negative regression from that based on the fact that he had an 18.4% K rate over a larger sample size up to this point last season, a 4.20 expected ERA over that course. Now, he's always had some very extreme things going on with his pitching repertoire and then just his BABIP in general. One of the unluckiest pitchers ever when he pitched for Boston, one of the luckiest pitchers last season to be able to survive in Detroit. And now this year, it seems like he had put it all together, but just one start back, got completely shelled in a spot where the velocity is down a little bit. And it was against Oakland. This is a far more functional Seattle team, albeit in the best pitcher's park in baseball. So I'm going to take my chances stacking up against Eduardo Rodriguez, considering he's the guy pulling the most ownership out of anybody not named Luis Castillo, Charlie Morton, and Shohei Ohtani in that range. He's going to be my least favorite.
Okay. I don't think I told people, did I even tell people that hit the like button coming in? Guys, if you have not hit the like button, please do that for us. It helps us out a lot if you do. Subscribe to the channel, obviously, if you haven't already, and hit the notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. And of course, we have been trying to get people back on our podcast channel after we kind of hit the brakes on it for a little while. We're trying to revive our podcast channel. You can find my high stakes podcast on the podcast channel. Definitely check it out. Give us a 5-star review if you like our content. Check it out on wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have not yet signed up for the Hall of Fame, you got to just go to stokastic.com/avatar, put your avatar, download the avatar, make your avatar on both DraftKings and FanDuel, place in the top 3 in a contest of 5,000 or more, and then tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF. Or if you don't have Twitter, you can email it to us as well. You'll get a shout out from Lofty, and you'll win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Equally important, I think. I mean, I think that a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum is extremely important, but so is that shout out from Lofty. It just feels so good to be shouted out by Lofty. So make sure if you have not yet done so, go to Stokastic. Yeah, it's the best, man. You guys, if you haven't done it yet, you gotta join the Stokastic Hall of Fame to get that honor of being called out by Lofty. All right, let's move on down the board. So we talked about some of the top end pitching options, and it's pretty flat. Like, so we talked about everybody, Julio Urias up on to Shohei Ohtani, and then it's just a $300 break before Carlos Rodon is 8,500, and we've got 6 more pitchers 8,000 to 8,500. We have Justin Verlander at 8,000, John Gray 8,300, Corbin Burns 8,400, Michael Kopech 8,500, JP France, and Carlos Rodon also 8,500. Of those pitchers, 8,000 to 8,500, who are you most inclined to play tonight?
Most inclined to play Corbin Burns. I think that he's the guy pulling the most ownership out of everybody that you listed off too, but I don't really care. Cincinnati, it's a very difficult matchup. This team is revamped with all their young power. It's a phenomenal ballpark for offense too, but it's just the talent level of somebody like Corbin Burns relative to his chances of success. And at 11%, where we've currently got him projected, I can get north of that pretty easily. He was one of the guys in the Sims that was popping up for me. I'm playing a lot of 3-max stuff tonight, in addition to just rattling off 100 lineups, but 33.1% hard hit percentage. He can do the things to mitigate power in a park like this. And then he brings a 23.1% K rate that I do think has room to grow here in the second half of this season. He's at a 3.65 expected ERA, a 3.94 actual ERA. So also expecting positive regression for pretty much everything across the board, not just strikeouts, but in terms of productivity. So I think Corbin Burnes, it's a very terrifying spot facing Cincinnati here. And I did bet Cincinnati. I think that they're a pretty good value, but that was at plus money yesterday. They're sitting minus 105 now. I wouldn't be pulling the trigger at it. But I do like Corbin Burnes just as a contrarian type option compared to the 30-40% you're getting for Castillo and Morton.
Okay. Who is your least favorite of the pitchers, 8,000 to 8,500 on DraftKings?
I mean, it's once again, one of those things where like Carlos Rodon, I'm going to be targeting. Colorado's my highest owned stack today. We've seen one start from him back. He's going into Coors, and you do get Chris Bryant and CJ Cron back. You get an Elias Diaz, who obviously has tons of pop at the catcher position, batting cleanup coming off of the MVP. Not that that matters at all, but in general, there are some righties who can do some damage against Rodon. And there have been times where it just took Carlos Rodon a little bit to get the wheels turning. I don't think there's a whole lot to mine out of his last start. We did see the velocity pick up right where it left off last season in that brief little stint. But I do think that Carlos Rodon, because of the game environment, and he's actually pulling more ownership than JP France, Michael Kopech, John Gray. There's just no ownership going to those other guys. So I think Carlos Rodon, my least favorite, purely because I am absolutely stacking up against him.
Yeah, and it's in Colorado, so kind of it's just a tough spot for Carlos Rodon. I think that makes sense. And then the rest of the pitchers here,
Sean V, shut up, dude. Shut up. Saying? They're terrible against left-handed pitching. Chris Bryant and CJ Cron have been out for a month and a half, you dipshit. Shut up. God, I can't with you. God, you're so dumb. You're such an idiot. God. What a moron.
I'll give you time. If you want to keep going on this rant, I'll give you all the time.
The two best right-handed hitters have been out for a month and a half. Oh my God, they're terrible against left-handed pitching. I'm shocked. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's Sean V, man. I've stopped responding to him most of the time these days, just because I'm like, it's just not worth it at this point.
Just a fucking clown.
We've been doing this for years. He's not going to learn from us. We try to teach him like this is why this is important. This is why
not today.
Just at this point, it's like I'm kind of over it to some extent.
Can't do it. Calm down, pal. I'll calm down whenever I want. I can do what I want. I'm the one talking. You can tune into another show if you want. Go ahead.
All right. Pitchers under 8,000. I'm just going to group them all together. Who do you like as far as value pitchers today?
This is where it kind of gets fun because I have a ton of interest in this range. And some of them with players I didn't really anticipate having a whole heck of a lot of interest in. But Brian Bayo is number one on that list. If you've been listening to anything of my content lately, I'm just kind of in love with some of the mixes that he's had to his pitching repertoire here of late. And the ground ball rate just keeps trending up. I mean, it's always been good at the big league level. He got beat up by a little bit of BABIP. And then the K rate, it's never really all that beautiful, if you will, 20.8% overall on the season. But you combine a 56% ground ball rate with how deep he's pitching into some of these games. And against a team like the Cubs that can I reference their splits and can it actually matter? Oh yeah, I probably can because it looks pretty similar to the lineup they've had all year long. Look at that. It's incredible. 23.6% K rate, 8th worst in baseball. I think Brian Bayo could run into some extra strikeouts here. I'm feeling as though he's the guy that I definitely want to be taking the most shots on relative to their ownership. Kenta Maeda, he's pulling all of the ownership. I think rightfully so. It's in Oakland. It's against Oakland. Those are both good things. And then Aaron Savale, somebody that I didn't anticipate getting to at all, but he showed up. He's 1.8% owned. And I would say he's outperformed every metric that I would anticipate him being terrible at in years past. He's really limiting hard hits, 367 expected slugging, just a 20.7% K rate, but I can get behind anything that's like 1 or 2% that's just as contrarian as he is, who's had as much success suppressing power this year as he has.
Love it. All right. So top of the board for you is Brian Bayo, just because of the lower ownership, followed by Kenta Maeda, who's obviously going to be kind of chalky, but worth playing. And then Aaron Savale. Anybody else that you like outside of those three?
Nope. That's pretty much I mean, those are kind of, I mean, they're three kind of more contrarian pieces there. Miles Michaelis, no thank you. Dean Kremer, not my cup of tea. We're getting a sub 7K Sandy Alcantara. That'll be a fun conversation point, huh? And pulling no ownership, huh? Oh boy, I'm a little bit nervous about that one, but just what, 5 pitchers in the 7K range? I've got interest in 3 of them. That's quite a bit.
Who is it? Brendan asking, is the Sean V thing a bit, or we don't know? It's been alleged many times that he's a troll, that he comes from other sites to throw people off. I have no idea what Sean V's background is, other than just trolling us a lot in chat. I want to shout out
Jordan's like, Eric's just having fun.
Right.
He's like,
exactly.
what you gonna do?
Yeah.
For me, it's more of just like, dude, when you say stuff like that, it's like such a glaring difference in the lineup today compared to what you've had at any point for the last, well, until the last week when they both got back, but like for the last month and a half, 2 months, which is a majority of the sample size of a team being bad against a certain handedness of pitching, you're out of your mind. You're just, you can't even be reasoned with. You can't.
Is this news to you, Eric, that he can't be reasoned with?
No, it's not, but it's just fun.
I mean, you've been dealing with it a lot longer than I have.
It's fun to play it up.
Rick Gill says, I'm not very good at DFS. What am I doing wrong? I like to play single entry GPPs for baseball. Should I stack or look for power hitters?
You should stack.
Yeah. So it's a very, very easy answer that you should stack rather than looking for power hitters. Do you have any other general advice for Rick Gill, who says that he's not very good? I mean, you might not even be bad at DFS. Like if you're just stacking your lineups, you're going to find a lot of plus EV lineups in general, as long as you're not playing like all of the chalk. If you just stack and, go contrarian in spots here and there, you're probably making plus EV lineups in MLB GPPs. Do you have any other advice for Rick Gill? Or kind of answers this question.
Yeah, I think you did it perfectly. I mean, we want to be stacking mainly because in single entry, especially, you don't have to be perfect. There's no 25,000, 30,000 lineup GPP single entry tournaments. Like we're looking to beat a field of 5,000 or less most of the time. And in that kind of capacity, you just want to encapsulate all of the upside of an offense and put it all together. It's just a better way to go about it. Now, if you were to play a GPP with 100,000 lineups in it, you can start to reason and get away from doing something that 35% of the field is going to do, just because by process of elimination, you're going to have to be more perfect. But definitely in single entry, I'm always looking to stack.
Yep, absolutely. In basically any GPPs.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still looking to do it in those 100,000, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to give like the devil's advocate example of like a time when it wouldn't be crazy to say, hey, let's just play random batters that have power.
Yep, that's fair. Malakar gifted 5 stochastic YouTube memberships, people. That's awesome, Malakar. Good for you. Love to see it. Love to see the community support there.
Detroit.
Devin McIntosh says, what is a good ownership percentage when running lineups in the generator, new to using the tool? So I think it varies day to day, like based on the slate size, based on the context of the slate. Like today we have Coors, it might be different than usual. I would say generally, so if you look at the bottom of the lineup, there are a little meters that show you how well the lineup projects on a range, on a scale, and also contrarian to chalky. For me, I generally prefer lineups that are like not on the far left chalky end of the thing. So like, put your pinky on the little meter, and if it's to the right of your pinky, it's probably contrarian enough in general. Do you have any like good answers for like ownership percentage in general, what you're looking for?
No, it's slate to slate. Everything's slate to slate. Everybody wants to have one fixed set of rules for like, what should my ownership cap be? What should my cumulative ownership be? What should be, I would argue from time to time, it's like looking at the stack relative to the pitcher and then deciding, am I going to be going 5-3 where I can be running into some duplication based on that secondary stack, or 5-2-1s? 5-2-1 is generally how I build out most of mine. It's always 5-3 or 5-2-1. But I think for the most part, when you're in the lineup generator like this, I love going 5-3s and then kind of going towards a one-off or kind of putting in some of my own variants for it. But yeah, I would say that there's no exact amount of ownership that I would be day in, day out saying I want to be targeting it, especially because like today, Luis Castillo's 50%. Let's just say that He was 30%, 35%, something of that nature that we didn't have. It was George Kirby at 8,900. So the ownership would come down on it. Like, everything changes. The entire equation changes because there's just not going to be as much cumulative ownership available. So it's just there's no hard and fast rule for it. You just gotta, I'm not going to say you play it by ear, because there's ways to do things correctly relative to what the field is doing. And I think that's where the Sims tool really comes in handy. Where you can play out what the field is doing and find those high ROI lineups. With the lineup generator especially, it's awesome to be able to find a stack or two that can be popular, that has a contrarian secondary that can help you reduce some of that ownership if that's the way you want to play it.
That is the beautiful thing about, I guess, Jordan, the lineup generator is one of the reads that I'm doing on here. So if Jordan, if you can pull up the lineup generator.
Oh, he's had it up there the whole time.
He's had it up here the whole time. Of course he has. I don't even see it. But
stud.
Yeah, check out the lineup generator if you haven't already. The beautiful thing, as you were just kind of alluding to, Eric, is that all of the lineups are already balanced for you. Like, these have been run through the Sims. They've all been found to be long-term plus EV. Doesn't mean that the lineups you put in are necessarily going to win tonight, because there are thousands and thousands of lineups that come out of the lineup generator. There has to be, so that we're not all duping each other. Thousands of lineups come out. Obviously, not all of them are going to win every night, but over the long term, these are all lineups that have been found to be plus EV, long-term profitable lineups in the stochastic sim. So check out the lineup generator if you haven't. I was even trying to start the lineup generator. Jordan's just that good. He could tell like what it was turning into. Good for you, Jordan. I guess I should look at the screen, what he's got. He had already taken it off by the time I looked. But yeah, we got to a ton of Yankees today. And if you look at actually, Jordan, can you just pull up one lineup so I can show him what I was talking about in terms of what kind of ownership I'm looking for? I guess you'd have to discard one and go back and find one. All right, so go to the bottom here. So you can see here we got an ownership scale and a projection scale, and basically every lineup you're going to get here is going to be like in the top 10% in terms of projection. As you can see here, it's like kind of this is like the lowest you'll see in terms of projection. But then the ownership scale, depending on the type of lineup you choose, will be all the way to the far left chalky end, or if you choose contrarian lineups, it can be almost all the way to the far. You're never really going to find it all the way to the far right in terms of contrarianism, but like this is kind of where I love to be. Like basically anywhere more than 10%. Like I don't want to be in the 10% chalkiest lineups for a majority of my lineups. I'll maybe play a couple in a 20 set. In general, I want to be right of like the far left 10% line is generally where I'm kind of aiming here for my favorite lineups. Still, I'll play a couple of those chalky lineups in a 20 set sometimes, but generally, to answer your question, that is where I am looking to be. All right. I think that we have talked enough about the lineup generator. We do still need to talk about some bats. I want to say Mark Curry pointed out that Brian Anderson, right, was scratched for Milwaukee. Yeah, that is a good call out. Thank you there. Mark, we already got the new Brewers lineup. I guess that was 20 minutes ago. So everything should be updated by now. Not something we need to worry about. I am way behind in chat, so I don't know if we didn't see any other super chats or anything, but I think that we are good. Anything else you want to say about pitchers here, Eric?
Well, I want to get to my crazy, ridiculous sub 7K guy that I'm going to be playing today.
Let's hear it.
Graham Ashcraft. He's 5,100. He's 0.7% owned. He has a 20.6% top two value percentage. It's the highest on the entire slate. I prefer him over a Rich Hill. I prefer him over a lot of pieces. And Milwaukee's traditionally been a lot worse against lefties, and I've kind of just targeted him constantly here. And Graham Ashcraft had an ERA north of 10 as recently as 2 starts ago. But you know what he's done the last 2 starts? He's found ways to get back to what he's good at, and that's inducing ground balls. 10-5, 10-4. It hasn't shown up completely in the strikeout department. Against San Diego, he popped 7 of those. But at 5,100, we've gotten back-to-back quality starts from him. He's suppressing the power, and this Milwaukee lineup is not good. It's not a good lineup. I'm willing to roll the dice just to jam in a top stack. Now, there are a lot of pitchers on this slate, and on a 15-gamer, maybe you don't have to, 14-gamer now, but you don't need to go this crazy all the time. I think you want to be going towards a little bit of Graham Ashcraft just to get wild off the board. Because again, 6 with 5 Ks, I think that's enough for me tonight if I can get another top tier offense in my lineup.
Yeah, I love that. And we've got some bats to pay out for. So makes some sense to play. I mean, it's dangerous. Like they're in the Great American Ballpark. I guess that kind of explains the sub 1% ownership. But yeah, 5,100. I like that call. That's a good.
And the velocity's gotten back. I went pretty, looked at quite a bit of stuff last time around to see kind of what changed, but they had sent him back down. Well, not sent him down. They just gave him a week or two off in the middle of June. And then 3 starts since. Still looked bad against Atlanta, but you know who's going to look bad against Atlanta, Neil? Everybody. Everybody's going to look bad against Atlanta. San Diego shut him down. Washington, that was his best outing of the year, I thought, even with 3 walks. Only the 1 earned run there in that one as well. If we get any kind of K productivity, I think you could be running into a very contrarian sub 1% guy.
Love it. All right. I like that call quite a bit.
I have 12% for what it's
wow.
Not like I am jamming him, but
I mean, that's a stand.
Well over the field. Yeah.
That's not a small amount. I like it. All right. Any other pitchers that you want to talk about, or should we move on, talk about some stacks, maybe individual bats if you have opinions there?
No, pretty much it for me. If you ran into a share or two of Rich Hill, I wouldn't completely besmirch it. I would Trevor Williams. I don't. I have zero interest in going that direction. Ross Stripling's broken. Not a big fan of that. Kyle Hendricks, he's done a really good job at reducing power, but a sub 15% K rate's not going to get me there. There's nothing other than Sandy Alcantara, 5.1% ownership. I have to roll the dice on a little bit of that, but I'm not going crazy over the field. I don't have double-digit percentage of it, but it wouldn't be crazy for me to look in hindsight and say, hey, Sandy put it together again for a night after the worst first half you could imagine coming off of a Cy Young. So 6,800, had a week to think about things. Hopefully he comes back and can do a little bit of something there, because I'm right around 8%.
All right. So I just realized we haven't talked at all about FanDuel. So let's just do that real quick. Let me ask you, we have like 10 pitchers here above, maybe 9 pitchers above 9,000 here. Justin Verlander is 9,200 up to Eduardo Rodriguez is 10,400. We don't have Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher on FanDuel. Do you have a favorite pitcher above 9,000 on FanDuel?
Yeah, Brian Bayo. Oh, above 9,000. Sorry. Corbin Burns would be it relative to ownership, 3.6% owned, a little bit of positive leverage going his direction. Again, it's a terrifying spot, but he's right between Castillo and Morton, and they're pulling over 50% of ownership combined. So give me the guy who has a Cy Young, who I don't think the numbers are really indicative. He's been really good this season, not quite the Cy Young version of himself, especially in the K department, but Corbin Burns against Cincinnati, it's terrifying, but I think there's a chance. I think it's a pretty darn good chance that he surpasses Castillo more than 1/10 of the time, more than 1/8 of the time against the 23% Mortons. So yeah, 3.6% ownership on Corbin Burns, my favorite pitcher over 9K for tournaments.
Perfect. And I think that we know what's coming when I ask you for your favorite pitcher overall. But first, Patrick Maduka's asked, so no pitching stats coming for Ohtani tonight. That is correct. All of his stats are going to be just his hitting stats. Yeah, you don't get pitching stats for batters. All right, just tell me your favorite pitcher overall, and if there are any others outside of Brian Bayo that you like here.
Yeah, Brian Bayo for FanDuel purposes, 8,500. That's giving you a different look than 1,200 more to Castillo, 1,000 more to Charlie Morton. I do think Castillo, relative in cash, you're playing Luis Castillo. Done, period, end of story. You're playing Luis Castillo in Seattle against Detroit's offense. There's no way around it. But in tournaments, I think rolling the dice in my one lineup, I have Brian Bayo. He is absolutely going to be my single entry pitcher over there.
Okay. Love that. And then Tyler Houston asked, what weather games are we staying away from with pitching? Are there any remaining games that you're like not playing the pitchers because of weather?
No, the Mets game is the one everybody's been talking about on the twitters.com. We've got 25 minutes until lock. We've got how long until that game? 30 minutes until we'd have lock of that game. There's been no late start that's popped through. It is raining there right now. And then we just got news that the Marlins Orioles are going to be delayed because of inclement weather. So that's one to be paying attention to. I don't think that they're going to stop. I'm still, it's one of those things they're going to have to really wait. Let me double check radar here.
I mean, like a late start, I guess, is maybe better for pitchers if we think the game is going to play.
It's better for pitchers, but they could just not fucking play.
Right,
and that would be the problem. And there's really no way of knowing that. They're just going to have to wait it out. Yeah, so I'm looking at this. This is going to be wet till 9:30. I could see them just postponing this and moving on. I might have to just take that game out of my lineups.
Yeah, we've got so many games on the slate tonight, and like they're not.
And am I really feeling that bad missing out on 20% K rate from Kremer and Alcantara, and then Baltimore relative to I think Baltimore is a really good play if they're going to be 0.5% owned now, but I don't think that's the case. I'm just going to take that game out.
Yeah, I would say if you are going to play that game at all, I'd be more inclined to play full stacks rather than one-offs. Like I would not want to play any one-offs from that game. If you're going to play it, play full stacks.
That's a good call.
All right. I think we've done enough with the pitchers. And yes, somebody was asking, I think OMG Father asking, is Luis Castillo still 50% on DraftKings? Yes, he is. All right. Let's talk about some bats here, talk some stacks starting on DraftKings. Let's just start by talking about the Yankees. Like they're clearly an outlier. They're 18% chance of being the top stack at 18% ownership. What is your level of interest? Are you going to be playing the Yankees here? Are you going to be above the field, below the field? What are you thinking here?
I'm going to be a little bit below, but not by much. They are, without a doubt, the best team to get to on the board. They, other than Aaron Judge, which is a huge omission, this team is basically back to normal. Torres, Stanton, Rizzo, Bader, Donaldson, LeMahieu. Looks good, but yeah, Austin Gomber, 381 xWOBA, 299 expected batting average. I don't really even know how to add this. This just comes down to what you project out for some of these other teams that sit behind them, because they have the highest team total in our projections by over a run. We've got Atlanta with 5.9. We've got Milwaukee and St. Louis at 5.5. St. Louis has some weather that we've still got to be paying attention to. I love targeting Trevor Williams, one of my favorite things to do on a daily basis in DFS. But yeah, the Yankees, they're 18.6% ownership share. There's individual bats that I think you want to be very conscious of. Now, if you're playing cash, you're playing 5 Yankees. It's not hard. They're cheap, especially in the middle of that lineup. You get 4,300 Bader. He's in that cash lineup. Volpe would be in the cash lineup at shortstop, even at the 8-hole. 5th, Josh Donaldson batting 5th right now. It's ridiculous. Torres and Stanton, 5K and 5,300 against Austin Gomber, or just any lefty in Coors that I would be playing those guys. So definitely going to be playing them against this specific lefty. I don't know what to say other than like in cash, you're playing 5 of them. In tournaments, it makes sense if you just want to be jamming it, but it feels like they're going to be a little bit more popular than I'm interested in, considering there are a lot of teams that I do have interest in on this slate.
Have you confirmed? Is it Volpe and not Volpe?
Is it Volpe? I thought it was Volpe.
So I know that I feel like you have in the past, sometimes like you've known these pronunciations. I have no idea. I've always thought
I normally
Volpe,
do, but here's
no
the
idea.
thing. I've watched like no Yankees games in the last.
Me neither.
Like I can't watch that team without Judge. It is so brutal to watch. They're not that fun. And also, I mean, I've watched a couple of like Garrett Cole starts because, you know, I'll have them in DFS just like everybody else. It's like, hey, I wonder if Nestor Cortez is going to turn the corner. And I've tuned in and watched a couple of those starts and, you know, watched along with Baseball Savant just to track some of his pitches. But like the Yankees are probably my least favorite lineup to just sit back and watch. Like I enjoy watching Oakland more with like Asturi Ruiz and Brent Rooker and guys like that. I kind of know who the Yankees are. Like we know who Josh Donaldson is. We know who Giancarlo Stanton is, even though I do enjoy watching him at 450-foot bombs. Gleyber Torres is obviously really, really good, but you know, this has just been kind of a tough watch here of late. They're a team that doesn't have a ton of speed other than Volpe, if you want to call it that. And then Harrison Bader can run a little bit too, but otherwise it's just a team that I don't enjoy sitting back and watching.
All right. Pete Warner says it's Volpe, or maybe he's just making fun of the name. I'm not sure if he's telling us that it is Volpe or if he's just saying Volpe.
Do you know what that's from?
Say it again.
PPOP. I'm going to call you PPOP.
No, I don't know what that's from. Sandlot?
Chat's going to get it. Chat's going to get it. They have to. One of the greatest movies of all time.
PPOP. No idea.
I'm waiting for chat. Come on now.
It's going to be like, it doesn't even sound familiar to me. So I don't even think it's Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
That is it. Well, way to go, Kevin Stoops.
I've probably watched that within the past 2 months and I just does not sound familiar to me. Who said, is that a
Paul Rudd. He's the surf instructor.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the name that he gives Jason Segel. He's like giving everybody like shark swimmer and like cool names. And he's like, I'm going to name you PPOP.
It really is a great movie. I love that movie. Have you seen Couples Therapy? Kind of reminds me of it. I mean, it's not really.
You got a lot of pain
It's
in those eyes. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
A lot of good. And then there's one more movie out there that it sort of reminds me of. But I can't remember what it is. Like I think there are three like sort of similar for some reason. Like they remind me of, I think because of the scenery of the movie, kind of reminds me of like they're out on the water. I don't know, but
Wedding in Hawaii, real original. I could quote that all day.
Apparently, yeah, you got it down.
You sound like you're from London. I like that one too. Aggressive Goose.
All right. We've got through the Yankees. Tell me,
we did.
Tell me which stack.
The one team that everybody knows you could play if you wanted to, but like I think they're a little bit overowned today. Same way that I feel about Milwaukee. I'm obviously part of why I like Graham Ashcraft is you're just getting a ton of popularity on the Milwaukee side, and I have none. I'm far more inclined to be fading them. I really, really, really like getting to Minnesota, and I never like getting to Minnesota. Our team has not been very good, Neil. Have you noticed? They've been pretty bad.
They started out pretty good.
Ken Waldichuk is on the mound now. And Ken Waldichuk, how much wood could a Waldichuk chuck if a Waldichuk could chuck wood? Not very much. Actually, he would just run into wood, and then the ball would go 450. Even here in Oakland, 353 xWOBA, 444 expected slugging, sub 20% K rate, giving up power for days. And I do like the fact, as sad as this is to say, that we don't have Joey Gallo in this lineup against any random person. Just give me Kepler even in this lineup. Give me the righties. Give me, I mean, I'm just going to be getting to a lot of the Minnesota Twins today in Oakland. God help me.
I mean, coming in at 6.4% ownership with a 11.9% chance to be in the top value stack. So just from a value perspective, they look like they have a lot of nice positive leverage. You can certainly make, I'm sure it might be a common construction to do Yankees and Twin stacks because the Yankees are a little bit more expensive. You go down, play cheaper Twins. But it's a stack that kind of makes some sense. Like it makes sense if people want to play that stack. Yeah, the Twins look great here. Any other stack? What is the stack that you were going to be the most overweight to the field on?
Colorado by a mile.
Colorado. All right. Tell me about your, I mean, I know they're in Colorado. They're getting under 2% ownership, but tell me about your level of interest there.
All right. So Carlos Rodon, the guy was incredible with the White Sox, had a good year with San Francisco as well, even though he did give up a lot of righty power. You saw that highlighted by a Sunday night baseball game that I was just like, I had to go back and watch a little bit of it because I was like, how did he give up like 9 earned in that one and have to absolutely wear it? Well, Paul Goldschmidt was also hitting he had like a 220, 240 WRC plus against left-handed pitching for the year. But Carlos Rodon, one start back. I don't really know what to make of it, but he had a 6.37 expected ERA. Now that is way higher than a 2.64 and 2.68 expected ERA he had the last 2 seasons. So do I expect it to get better than that? Yes. But it does show that he wasn't all that impressive despite getting by and only giving up 2 barrels over the course of his 18 batted balls. So I think that fastball is still something he's going to be throwing a ton. His slider usage in that first game back was non-existent. He threw 77% fastballs. 77%. I think it might just be something where as he's getting acclimated, they're not going to have him throwing a lot of breaking pitches, especially here at altitude. And if you're going to give batters a preview of that fastball and have it be teed up for them and let them know that it's going to be coming, you got Chris Bryant, you got CJ Cron back. This is a completely different type of lineup iteration, especially at the top of the lineup than we've ran into. Am I all that excited about the back half of this Colorado lineup? No, but I need to mix and match, have some salary savers there. And Ryan McMahon left on left, not my favorite thing to be doing here, but even back half Brenton Doyle, I think he's got enough pop sitting there in the 9 hole, have a couple of wraparound stacks there. Ezekiel Tavar, now that he's batting 7th instead of 2nd, because you get Chris Bryant and CJ Cron back, he's going to come in just 0 ownership. I mean, this is a team that's just in Coors Field, just like the Yankees, pulling 1% ownership as a result. And I know Chris Bryant and CJ Cron are having down years, but they've been hurt for a majority of it. I think both of them probably want to get out of Colorado by the deadline if it's at all possible. So yeah, I kind of want to be stacking this team up while those 2 are there while we can.
All right. I love it. Yeah. Take advantage of the batters who have not been great at low ownership. You know that the skill is there. We think that the skill is still there for those Rockies. So I like that call. Any other stacks that you want to call out?
Yeah. So some of the ones that are pulling ownership that I have interest in, Atlanta, You should always have interest in Atlanta. Michael Kopech's coming off the IL for this one. I have no idea what we're going to get from him, but he had been all right this season, but nothing special. The K rate's down. He was an incredible reliever 2 years ago. Since coming back, pretty much any time that he's come into this starting pitching role, it's just not gone well. It's been a brutal career for him. And now he's going to be facing the best offense in baseball over the course of the last month and a half. Hard not to have Atlanta interest. They're averaging like 2 homers a game as a team over the course of this season and like 2.4 over the course of their last month and a half. Ridiculous splits, ridiculous numbers, ridiculous power. So Atlanta, of course, I have interest there. And St. Louis, I'm going to be paying attention to that weather. Trevor Williams, if people are going to get scared off by it, I feel better about St. Louis playing than Baltimore playing at the moment. I have no idea what to make of that one, but I'm going to be paying very close attention to it because Trevor Williams is garbaggio. He is not good. He is the Sean V of pitching. I just don't really know what to say other than that. Him and Miles Michaelis are both awful on both sides of it, but one gets to face the Nationals and one still has to face a very good, competent St. Louis lineup with Brendan Donovan, Goldschmidt, Lars Nootbaar, Arenado, Contreras, Walker, Gorman. There is no get up or let up in that entire lineup, even though they've had horrendous starting pitching all year that's weighed them down. So Trevor Williams, I would love to stack against him, especially if that ownership comes down because people are worried about weather.
Love it. Well, we'll talk about, a lot of people want to talk about Cincinnati, but before we do that, I do want to talk a little bit more about our sponsor. Yeah, we talked about them a little bit up top, but if you have not yet signed up for Sleeper, you can get up to $100 first deposit match promo on bonus on Sleeper. And of course, you play in these pick'ems on Sleeper, you can win up to 100x payouts. That is the highest payouts out there on any of these sites. So check out Sleeper if you haven't already. And in particular tonight, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we've got a free square. We've got Luis Castillo line at 0.5 strikeouts. You can throw that into your card right away. It's just a free square for you. You're gonna make, if you just put 2 bets on your card, like normally I wouldn't recommend doing a card that's just 2 bets. It's free money. Like you're just adding EV immediately to whatever other bets you want to throw on that card with that Luis Castillo 0. I take the over there. We're taking the over, right, Eric?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, we're taking the over on 0.5 strikeouts for Luis Castillo. So sign up now. I mean, you've got a little bit of time before that game starts and plenty of great props on Sleeper. Check it out if you haven't already. And of course, they have dynamic payouts, which means each player projection has a multiplier attached to it as opposed to preset multipliers based on the number of legs in a contest. So kind of different than any other of these sites that you've looked at. Very cool way to play. And, you know, when you get these free squares, you kind of got to take advantage, but Sleeper does them fairly regularly. So I'd recommend signing up now so that you can be prepared when they do come out with free squares, because it's hard to get better deals than those free squares that you can add to your cards. Check it out if you haven't already. All right, Eric. A lot of people want to talk about the Reds in chat. How do you feel about a Cincinnati Reds 5-man stack tonight going up against Corbin Burns?
I don't hate it, by the way. I just don't. It's a great ballpark. It's just obviously the pitching matchup. Corbin Burns is very good. He is better than your average Bear. It's a Cincinnati team with a ton of talent. For me, the biggest issue I have is it's not like you're getting some kind of a price decrease for this matchup. Ellie De La Cruz is up to 6,300 on DraftKings.com. You got Matt McClain at 5,500. I mean, they are going to be completely unowned at these kind of numbers. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Every batter in this lineup outside of 9-hole Mr. Will Benson is 4,400 or more. That's insane against Corbin Burns to me. So I think that's my major concern for it, is that, like, what are the 2 pitchers you're playing for? You're probably playing my guy Graham Ashcraft or something in that lineup, but it's not for me. But I totally understand why you do something like that. It's a pitcher that, I mean, he's not all that popular in Corbin Burns, and that's because of the ballpark and the matchup. But it's a high upside offense against anybody, so I totally get it.
And I don't hate doing the with Graham Ashcraft in there. Like it's, I mean, I guess you're going extra contrarian there with the pitcher and the stack, but like you're a little added correlation to having the pitcher there. Graham Ashcraft more likely to get the win if the Reds go off. So yeah, it seems like a good idea. And looking at the top stacks tool, they actually grade out pretty well. They're coming in at 2.6% ownership, 4.6% chance of being the top stack. Yeah, I don't hate the Reds at all. Any other stacks that stand out to you that you think are going to be above weight to the field?
Let me finish it all out here. I was just updating everything, getting it done. Seattle, I'm definitely going to be overweight to Seattle. Eduardo Rodriguez, talked about him being awesome this year, but nothing like a late night hammer for a game that has a 7 implied total in Vegas. Good stuff. But majority of that, the Seattle side, you get Castillo on the one side. He's going to be popular, and there's nobody playing the bats here. We just saw a low scoring all-star game. It's the number 1 ballpark in terms of run suppression in the league, but it plays neutral for home runs, which is what I'm really interested on DraftKings. And I think that there's enough power that exists here with Seattle that I want to be getting to the Julio Rodriguez. I want to be getting to Teoscar Hernandez, Ty France, and Eugenio Suarez. You get Tom Murphy, batting catcher, 2,400 for a little bit of savings, who's had a pretty decent year relative to what people might think. AJ Pollock has had like the worst year ever. He's not popping up a whole lot for me in that, but I can basically play the 1 through 6 guys that you want to be getting to because nobody else is, and then kind of surround them with whatever chalk that I want. So I don't know what to make of Eduardo Rodriguez, but he did not look good his first start right off the bat against Oakland. This is a much better baseball team than Oakland. Yeah,
for sure. We got the ranked depositor asks, why is no one talking about Maeda? We talked about Maeda a little bit. He's choppy,
7K on FanDuel. I suppose that he's not really pulling a ton of ownership over there. It's because everybody is playing the same 2 pitchers. Everybody's playing Charlie Borton. Everybody is playing Luis Castillo. I like the Corbin Burns pivot, 9,600. I like the Brian Bayo pivot. That's the one who's in my single entry there on FanDuel, 8,500. But if you wanted to get to Kenta Maeda at 7K and play a ton of Coors bats, even though Coors bats aren't exactly expensive today, I don't think there's a single Coors bat that was over 3,200 on FanDuel when I had looked before. So it's just egregious. You're probably playing just the 4 Yankees. And I would argue probably towards playing either like a Chris Bryant or CJ Cron in that capacity as well. So FanDuel pricing is so broken with that people are just playing best available pitcher over and over again. That's why you're seeing nobody on Maeda.
Yankees and Coors and nobody over 3,200 is
nobody in the entire
nuts.
Game over 3,200.
I mean, yeah, that's insane for a game that has the Yankees in Coors Field.
You want to know why I'm playing one lineup over there? There you go.
Right. Good call.
Go Minnesota, go Seattle in that one.
Somebody asking about whether we have concerns about the Baltimore game. I mean, a little bit. Like, it certainly did. You? Is that the game that you?
I took it out.
You did.
Yeah,
you took it out of your
already.
Player pool. So they're already delayed, right? They're not starting on time. So yeah, I mean, I think you should be a little bit concerned there. At least it's tough. Like I didn't remove it because I'm on a show. Otherwise, I might consider removing that game as well.
Here's the thing, like Neil and I aren't better than any of you. We're playing the game just like you are. We don't know something that you don't. Like, we're getting the same news from the same places for this. And I'm using google.com for weather. Now, we might have a lot of experience, and that's where we're able to come to this place and chat and talk through stuff. But it's kind of a no-win situation for us because we tell you, hey, I'm taking it out of my player pool. And then you do the same thing. And now this game plays and Baltimore scores 10 runs. I'm going to feel like an asshole. Now, if I keep it in my pool and you keep it in and it gets canceled, then I'm getting mad at it again. So, you have to kind of just know that it comes with the territory. I chose to take it out of my pool. That's all it means. You can do what you want with that information.
Yeah, I see. News God says Baltimore should play. Ongo Gablogian says rain is clearing out of Baltimore in a few minutes. So, certainly it's a game that has some risk associated with it. And even though it is clearing out, or if we assume it is clearing out, that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to play, because you're still dealing with people making decisions based on, well, we've already started late, the field is wet. Like, there are still ways that even if it is ridiculous and the rain clears out, they still might, the game still might not play. So keep that in mind. But it's kind of a toss up. Just, we don't really know what to expect from that game. So a matter of how comfortable you are with it. And it is a 13 game slate still. So even losing one game, we still have 13 games. So not the end of the world to X a game out. All right. I think that we have, do you have any other stacks that you really want to talk about here, Eric?
Arizona against Jose Barrios. I just kind of have to do that. A little bit of them. It's Corbin Carroll and the usual characters. More of a secondary stack for me, but I definitely have Corbin Carroll popping. Always good when you can steal lots of bases and hit lots of home runs. I think that's useful in fantasy.
Zach Geloff, min salary one-off. I don't even know who that is. Do you have any interest in? I assume that's Baltimore.
Yeah, he was. Who was? I saw the name come across on my sheet earlier. Where'd he go?
See if I have any of him for my lineup.
Yeah,
generator.
Oakland. I have none.
Oh, he's from Oakland. Okay.
Yeah, he was really good, but this is probably a conversation for a different show. Or Lindy, as I talk about it all the time. The PCL drives me bonkers. It's so hard to know what you're going to get, because you get pitchers who succeed at altitude and then come to the big show, and then they are like just getting shelled, and it doesn't make sense. And then you mainly get the inverse, where it's like, oh, this guy is a 6.8 ERA and he comes in and mows down everybody. His first game, playing in San Diego or in Arizona or something. It's so impossible to know exactly what you're going to get. And then batters like Zach Geloff, who has a 304, 401, 529 slash line. I have no idea how that's going to be showing up. The PCL is just an absolute joke. It's baseball on steroids. You're playing in Reno. You're playing in Albuquerque. You're playing every hot weather spot. It's really hard for me to ever know what I'm going to get.
Yeah. I did not get to any of him in the lineup generator. Yeah, really hard when batters or pitchers are coming from the PCL, really hard to judge how they're going to transition to MLB. We're going to give our home run picks. I should just tell you guys, you heard it on the show before us, but we do still have that great offer going with BetMGM, where you can get up to $1,000 paid back in bet credits and 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum for free when you sign up. Get your 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum and your bet covered up to $1,000. When you sign up, make a deposit and make your first paid wager at BetMGM. I believe it just has to be a minimum of $10. Use the link in the description when you sign up for BetMGM, or I'm sure it's in chat as well. Check it out. Of course, the legal age for gambling in most is 21 plus. If you're someone has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Eric, 3 favorite stacks today.
Well, I just wanted to throw one thing out there for the Brian Bayo FanDuel people. Looks like weather is getting dicey in Chicago. I'm going to be paying attention to that now too. I mean, this is just an absolute shit show. It's a storm everywhere, it seems. So pay attention to the weather in Chicago. I might have to be pivoting off of Bayo. It shouldn't be that hard. You have Castillo in the late night hammer. If you have to absolutely move to chalk, that's good chalk to eat. Get different with your bats. But my 3 favorite pitchers tonight, is that what you asked me again?
We're doing 3 favorite pitchers, 3 favorite stacks, and then a home run pick.
Okay. Luis Castillo, good chalk. Brian Bayo, if that game is looking like it's going to be okay, and way off the board, Graham Ashcraft.
Love it. All right. 3 favorite stacks.
Colorado. I mean, the Yankees, like everybody else, Yankees, Colorado, so both Coors teams. And I will round it out with Minnesota.
Home run pick can't be in Coors.
I think this game looks better. This Mets game looks better. Max Muncy, he hits the ball very hard, very far.
We've got him with a 25% chance of hitting a home run.
It's pretty high.
Top batter stool. Yeah, that is not bad. I am going to go with, I just cheat and go straight to the top batter stool and take the top bat, which is Rafael Devers. Has a 31% chance of hitting a home run. Our top overall is Giancarlo Stanton with 41%, but Rafael Devers.
He's a 41% chance to hit a homer.
41% chance. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Well, that makes me happy. I did bet him because he was popping for me. I had him at like 37 or 36%. And he was outside of plus 200. I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be on the card. Beautiful.
All right. Well, you got some value on
Giancarlo
Stanton, but I'm taking Rafael Devers. You've got Max Muncy for home run picks. Any final words, Eric?
Yeah. Be by your computer tonight. If you plan on going to the bar, maybe bring your laptop, because pretty sure something's going to happen weather-wise. You have to pay attention to Chicago, St. Louis. The Mets game looks like it's going to be fine here, unless there's some storm that pops up out of nowhere. And then, fingers crossed for all of you who decided to play Baltimore.
EMac taking Matt Olson as his home run pick. I don't know if he's probably not cheating like I am, but Matt Olson is 3rd overall, just behind Devers, with a 30% chance of hitting a home run. Good advice to have a computer nearby so you can adjust your lineups. Thank you guys very much for watching. And of course, remember, if you have not yet done so, please do hit the like button. It really does help us out a lot. Good luck tonight, everyone.